Oh, here's Brian. Did you say that you wanted to go ahead and do it?
Yes, please. That's fine.
Okay, so we're going to start doing the color exercise first, which I believe is right here on yours. So do you want to like explain what your process was?
That's right. That's the before, and then I have an after one. So I might have definitely misunderstood, but I made like a set first because I was just kind of thinking about that, like, and just to kind of make it into an image. And then I used this online like platform called LunaPic, and with the after picture, well, there's the lighting that I used because I was trying to kind of give it the lighting effect, but it wasn't really working the way I wanted it to.
But kind of like a neon, like purpley.
Yeah, like a place where you go, play pool, and it's kind of dark, and then just like with the neon colors, that's kind of what I was trying to go for. But this site called LunaPic, it, I guess, sort of it allowed me to kind of like switch the coloring and the contrast or things like that, and it even kind of gave the effect around each item. If you see like the
brighter, like a little bit of a light over them.
Like the border. Yeah, so it at least helped with that, and it also helped darken it kind of gave it more of a dark effect, like it's nighttime or something like that. So
yeah, that was cool. And like it looks cool because it's like you use the color of like the pool balls, and is that like cotton balls?
Actually, I had like this molding clay, like so I just like made little balls, and then I was really having fun, and I was like using markers and just kind of playing around with it. I'm like, okay, focus on the lighting, focus on the colors.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, so like the color exercise, all it was is just trying to get the idea across, the foundation of the idea, and then of course, in film we add color in post to accentuate it. So I told everybody was having that same question. They were like, oh, I did color in post, but it was like, as long as the color came from the beginning of the color came from the actual set items, or in this case, like the miniature.
Yeah, even I had that. I was like, how much can I play around with the actual editing of the color, and how much do I have to just incorporate elements or mostly incorporate elements?
Yeah, because in film we start from the foundation on set, and then we work from there with lighting, with the actual performance from the actor. So all those things come together. But the main idea of this exercise was just to show like how to create a space just using ideas of items and color to help set a mood or a style.
That's so cool. Though, like the image you got looks so interesting. What did you use?
Thank you. I had a piece of cardboard and I covered it up with like this paper backdrop that I was using once for photos. So that's like what the wooden kind of floor look is. Oh, and then I had all this styrofoam. So I just started like carving all this styrofoam and then just like used glue and covered it up with papers. And then I had like all this craft stuff. So I made use with that. I just was having fun.
Nice. It's so cool. It looks like one of those like abstract. Trust me, it does. I took Dakota once to an art museum in Brazil, and there was like a modern art section, and there were a few things that actually look like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I think it's cool. It's kind of like the wiring's coming out of everything too.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I thought that was a cool touch.
So what is this? What is this thing supposed? Oh, is this the cash register?
Oh, it's supposed to be like the bar where you come up, and then I'm like, wait, and then I had like these clear thumbtacks, so I put stickers on them so they can look like little martini glasses.
Oh, that does work. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
What's that thing that looks like a spider?
Oh, what? Yeah.
Oh, over here?
Yeah.
Oh, that's like a fake kind of like leaves, like a plant. So I just kind of cut it a little bit to make like a little plant in the corner.
Oh.
Nice.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I like it. I think it's really cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And I'm glad
this
you had
is
fun,
after, like whenever she added the lighting effect using what was it called?
It does look way more. Whatever lighting effect you used, it did make it look a lot more like a cartoonish looking.
Oh,
which I thought was interesting. At least the part with the blue, the blue, the blue matte thing. That's supposed to be, I think, like the entrance, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But yeah, it could be just me, but it looks very cartoony with the shadow and the light.
Are you meaning in this picture, or are you talking about this one?
I'm talking about the darkened one. Doesn't it look more cartoonish, like like drawn?
I can see that. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. I really would have liked to keep the brightness of what was supposed to be the pool, like the balls, and then also the arcade. Yeah, like the pool balls, like the little, like the colorful, like the 8-ball and all that, and also the arcade machine. I really wanted to try and keep that like as bright as possible, but I just still need to practice more.
Yeah, that really has to come down to the software. Whenever you can make like little masks to say like don't color this, don't color that, don't color this part. But I think like with the practice, it works for what you were doing.
For like super cheap, just practicing, I used to use PixArt for that. Like the PixArt app on like a computer or on a phone, they have where you can like pick a specific image and you can mess with it, just that part of the image, and you can like cut it out, and it's pretty like basic, but it's good to like practice and play with.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you.
All right, cool. So does anyone have any questions or comments about it? Or does anyone want to go next for the color exercise? Oh, my vicious coming. All right, we'll go ahead and go next then. Anyway, good job, V. I think it's really cool. It actually kind of goes into one of our other exercises, which we're going to be doing later, which is miniature making. So I already have that down, so that's good.
Thank you.
You got it, honey? Did you receive it? Okay.
So with ours, we did two separate. We just like replaced some things on the wall. We replaced these covers we have for the couch, added a little color on the table, and changed the carpet and the curtain for the window to make it look either like it's more moody, it's a little more depressing maybe, and then it's a little more bright and happy. We didn't really use lighting as much as we probably could on this one, because we were just focused on the color. But if we were going to, we'd probably brighten my face up on the left side, or the right side anyway.
Yeah, I wanted to add that, but I was afraid of like if I filter it too much, it doesn't look as like we're not using the practical elements as much if I edit it. So but we did open the windows and everything. So the whole point was like we tried to show like contrast, like how you can take the same space and just with very minimal, we tried using things we had at home and then stuff from the Dollar Tree so that we wouldn't get like, I wanted to go all out and like buy like pillowcase covers and like, you know, but I was like, no, we'll do this on like the bare bones budget to like see if we can do it with what we have. So we just got like these little paper things at Dollar Tree and like some fake flowers and like little candles in a vase. And our curtain is like black, white, and gray. So it's like one of those gradient ones. So if you open it, you can just see mostly the white. We took out the cover of our couch, which looks hideous without it, but you know, match the color. And the lighting made the table look brighter as well, so it didn't look as moody and dark. And I made sure that his wardrobe also matched so that we could go for like his wardrobe and his body language. So we have like the elements, and we use like black, white, and gray for the moodier ones. And we used yellow, white, and orange for the brighter one.
Wow, it looks great. And then you even covered the curtains too, I think, on the darker picture.
Yeah, so that curtain it's all the same. When you close it, it has like, it goes from black to white gradiently. Like it starts from black, goes gray, and then goes like lighter gray and then white.
That's so a lot nicer
we closed it also to just, you know, shut out the light to make it a little more dark as well, so it's a little harsher.
Yeah, I tried evening it out. For some reason, it doesn't look exactly even. It looks a little tilted on the black one, on the darker image, and it kind of messed with my OCD a little bit, but
it looks the same. It's a little bit at a different angle. And she's
yeah,
all
it's
like,
not as
"Oh, yeah."
angled as I would like. I wanted it to get like the exact same angle so that, you know, I changed the coasters around. I put some like wooden themes. But yeah, I thought it would be cool. Like we take the same space and we just change a few little elements here and there. And it becomes a completely different mood because of color.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Great job.
Thanks.
Wow.
All right, does anyone want to go next for the color exercise? Oh, Gabe, which one's the color exercise on yours? Is this both of them?
Well, it's far from what the assignment is. The one that says color study.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Gotcha.
So I was, I thought it was just from there. All right. See I didn't video anything, so I just because I wanted like the view of that lens from that from that time. So I brought up the reds. So like by bringing bringing up the reds, you could actually look more. It creates like a depth to it. It actually makes it like more 3D. And I just have to look for the actual original. But it's not the assignment totally, but it's.
But it's good. Like you actually look for the look of the style
film, right? The lens.
You use like the colors for that time, and then you just added extra color on top, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's the particular lens that I would want to use, the effect that I would want to have, after I shoot it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then of course, like you would put them in colors and outfits similar to this, and have colors like in that time period, so that when you do the color grade later, it would add to the effect.
Yeah, that's right. Correct. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just wasn't able to shoot anything, so. So yeah, that's what
yeah, it's fine.
Oh, all right, cool.
Yeah, like you still looked for the colors that you wanted to go for the original image, which would be what the color for the production design would be anyway.
Yeah, it's also on the mood board, I guess, for later. When we go over the mood board, it's the same colors that I'm using over. That same tone with the red, the hues, and how it, it's actually a dull. It's like a really dull.
Yeah, you can also get different emotions with the different shading. Even though this one was more like color and elements, there is also like in the color grading, it will also change. It can also change the emotion you're going for. Like with ours, I didn't want to mess with it too much, but I did grade it, darken it a little bit, and make it more moody. And then in the brighter one, I brightened it up a bit so it wouldn't look as plain. So color in editing is also something.
Yeah, the color in editing is supposed to accentuate and enhance whatever happened on set. If it clashes, it doesn't look as good as if it's like blended. If it
consistency.
Yeah, exactly, and it helps enhance the original idea instead of just completely clashing against it, which is why it all kind of everything in film kind of goes together once you look into it, or it should anyway for a good film. If it's not, that's when you have the production's looking bad and scenes are looking different and production hell's going on.
And also, I wanted to make it like a drastic difference because it's gonna be modern. It's gonna be contemporary to. It's gonna go back, from to the past to contemporary, to present. And I wanted the present, the film, the filters to actually be high-end filters, more like he's upper class and
more clear and less colorized and stuff like that.
Yeah,
right?
I like Roman Polanski. I like the way like his movies look. So it'd be like a mixture of his movies. Like, have you seen the Ghost Rider?
Yeah,
No,
make
I
it
don't
make
think
it.
I have.
So let's say we like his stuff, not him.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so right, you heard of Roman Polanski? So his just like he has a certain look that he goes for, and it's like usually really like rigid, like square, rectangular, and it looks very lonely.
Yeah, you definitely can. It's crazy how you wouldn't think, but with certain directors and cinematographers, you can see their style in a movie, even if it's subtle. It's pretty impressive. Even if you don't, like even if you wouldn't have guessed. Like the other day, I watched. Unfortunately, I caved and watched the Doctor Strange movie, and it was good in some things, but basically I was like, even if I didn't know that Sam Raimi directed it, I could see Sam Raimi in it, and I could see elements of it, and it wasn't just the horror, it was the choices of shots, it was the direction, and with certain cinematographers, it's the same thing. You can look and you can see the color choices and stuff like that, or the elements, and it kind of got me thinking of, I wonder if, I know that when it comes to production design, it is a lot more about the story. So I'm sure that a lot of production designers can't really have like their signature as much. But I do wonder if, as far as like style, because we do see production designers that are more focused on world building and creating worlds, and others that are more focused on just everyday life and stuff like that. So I do wonder if in some aspects we can kind of see the production designer's style and vision through, like, if we really study it. I wonder if we can, or
I'm
if
sure,
it's
yeah.
yeah, it got me thinking about that, and it got me in like a whole train of thought.
Yeah, I'm sure, because even if you say, hey, I want yellow tones, it's like there's so many different shades of yellow that you could do. Shades, tint, tone, that
it's like
just to make, even if it's like bright yellow, there's still plenty of choices to choose from, and just the way it's stylized, and maybe it's a gradient, or I'm sure there's plenty of stuff like that, just like you see with the cinematography and directing.
Okay, I was gonna ask that as well, because I would hire a cinematographer, like, to make it like the way that I want it to look. Like, mainly by like, is there a way, because I would do that by looking at their portfolio, see if they, but I can also do that too, just by, it's just experimenting. It's not that hard.
Yeah, so if you wanted this kind of
time,
look, the only way you could probably get it, if you wanted
lenses.
it like actually authentic, you'd have to actually get a camera that's shot like that.
Yeah, they can't.
Yeah, you'd have to get a camera that's shot probably 8mm film, or maybe some that, or a filter that can mimic it, because film is complicated.
Yeah, most people now would just do like what you did on this picture, and just kind of do a filter over the footage.
Because even though film does look beautiful, it is very hard and annoying to maintain, and and those kinds of things. Not to mention expensive, but you would be surprised, actually. A good cinematographer that does his research can actually help create, like, has a vision and an idea that, because he studied it and because he knows it, that sometimes someone who specialized in a different area, or just directing or just writing, might not see. So it is a huge difference when you study it and when you know.
Well, they can also be like, okay, I'm not going to do the color like that because we don't have the footage, but we can do, a little bit blurrier footage than we would normally.
Yeah, they're also trained to like.
And they can discuss that with you to figure out if you want it to look kind of old, but also have modern day technology using, or if you want it to just look old and feel old, and kind of be a little more blurry than the more clear stuff that we can get now.
Because
So,
I was thinking like the way that you would fade to, you know, from present to past, it would be like a smooth transition, sort of like combining them to the point it's combining future. I mean, the 70s to the future. I mean, like to present day.
Yeah, and that would just depend on how you do how they line up the shots to do the transitions. You have to have transitions in mind when doing it. Like, you know, it could be a bus station that's 1970s, and then you go behind a pillar, and then after you go past the pillar, it's modern day. You know,
because
different tricks like that to kind of stitch it together.
Yeah, because of the monuments like that, the Apollo, that's a monument, and it's still here today. And it's the way exactly like what you're saying. To fade it from the past to now. No, I see exactly what you mean.
Yeah, definitely going from past to present in movies, if you ever like check them out, they always have some kind of different look for the past to the present, like you're talking about.
Right.
That way it's just easy to distinguish without it saying 1970. You can just easily figure out that we're probably in the past now by the way it's looking.
Yeah, and this would be like after the second show, you know, I mean, after the second episode, you don't have to, you know, probably the first episode is gonna be like, oh yeah, 1976, 1973. Then after that, like how you're saying, and man, you know, they're not gonna see the year. They're gonna be used to that. Oh, okay, that's 1973. That's 1973.
All you have to do is look at their froze, and you know.
Right? Yeah, that's the fun part.
Although, give it a few years, we're starting. The clothes are starting to come back. Maybe the dudes will too.
That's what I noticed. It's like, you know how it's 360, like it comes back. I think this.
I just think it's ironic because it's like, oh, that was hideous. We're not. What were we thinking? And then it's like, oh, let's do that again. I'm like, what?
Younger kids, the younger generation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. Does anyone else want to go? Does anyone else have a color exercise to show? Vish, you trying to say something? Hello?
Oh, I think Fish is like having. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, I'm not hearing anything, buddy. I don't think it's I don't know if it's the mic or what, but it's. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you. I don't know if any.
I was like, hopefully it's not the internet.
Yeah, we can hear you.
No, it's it.
I can hear you.
Okay. Vish, do you want to share your screen? I can stop sharing and allow you to share your screen if you want to do that. That way you can at least show it, and you can chat in the box if you want to. But if you'd like to show that, he said he had audio issues, but if you'd like to show the color exercise that you did, if you have one, you can either share your screen or you can just skip if you want. Whatever you want to do, just let me know. Okay, he said I'll do a little later. Anyone else have a color exercise they want to share?
Holy moly, I just noticed like the couch looks blue. I was looking at it again. And I was like,
we'll go ahead and do the next exercise then. The next exercise was the either mood board or the lookbook, and it was to get an idea that's in your head, whether it's created just for the exercise or whether it's something you've already thought about, onto a board to show people what you're going for. Since explaining how something looks is a little hard to do, and people will come up with a different vision in their head, which is why these mood boards or lookbooks exist. It's to help convey exactly the kind of feeling and look you're going for. So does anybody want to go first?
For the which one? The color grid?
Did you have a color exercise?
I'm gonna be late. I'm gonna have to bring it to Monday. Yeah, I did. I was gonna. Yeah, there's no excuse. I ended up taking another job, and yeah.
Oh, well, that's fine.
Okay.
Did you have the other exercise then, or no?
I didn't do either. Yeah, things kind of went. You know what? If it's okay, I can present it on Monday, and I'll do it tomorrow.
Oh, we actually don't have any studies next week, 4th of July week.
Okay, well, the next
But
class.
the week after that, we could.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, no, I'm like, yeah, sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
Well,
does anyone else have the mood board or lookbook exercise they want to share?
Yeah, I can share mine.
All right. Yeah, I think I have yours pulled up. Do you want to show the PDF or the MP4?
Whichever. I don't mind. The PDF was only there because it had like a link to music.
Right.
But
I clicked on it to listen to it. I'll have to, if we want, we'll show people after the reading. I just don't want to get a copyright check because YouTube's really annoying about that.
Yeah, sure. We can do the MP4. That's fine. Thank you.
All right. So do you want to explain like what the thought process was that you had?
Yeah, and I would appreciate just like an opinion on if you feel like this is more of a lookbook versus a mood board, but just going for, oh, it got blurry on me, like interior, like a 2-level restaurant. And I kind of put like some details on the side, but I really was going for, again, dark and neon. I don't know what that's about, but like a hazy room and just like this atmosphere, this mysterious atmosphere. So.
Nice. Yeah, I would definitely say this is a mood board. Lookbooks are more of in like showing scene 1, scene 2, kind of how it plays out. Okay. So yeah, this is a mood board, and I like it. I think it really illustrates the kind of
it looks so
party
cool.
scene.
I love the pictures.
The guy doing weird dance.
Yeah.
Which is what's good about doing a digital mood board as well, as you can have video clips or you can have music like you put, which we can listen to later.
And the thing about this that is so interesting is like you are conveying the feel, the theme in some ways, the energy you're trying to get, somewhat the color as well, because I can see there's a lot of colors that I don't know if this was I think this was intended, but like I can see a theme as far as color as well.
The neon colors on the inside and
the
kind of
neons,
dark and
the pinks,
gritty on the outside.
The gritty, but also kind of like the it's gritty yet like those party colors at the same time and neon at the same time, which I think is really cool. I don't know, I really like it, and it's really stylish and cool. Like it's like something I can see on someone's wall or something.
Thank you. I was kind of going for like a feel to where you can't really identify who the person is, and that's what the caution tape is, like some crime happens. But like obviously people are there, but then there's like this painted mask, like painted faces and just things like that. So.
Oh yeah, that was another thing I was thinking of while I was like, there's also some air of mystery, right? Because you have blurry faces and you have the caution tape, and
it's like a dark street outside, and so yeah.
Oh yeah, so there's like an air of mystery or secretism or something that's forbidden, something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's pretty cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think you did a really good job.
Yeah. You did a really good job at conveying the emotions too, even just using images and movements. That's pretty cool.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Oh wait, there's words on there to say.
Interior club, hazy, lead disappears. It says mood. It says it also says like the scenes in order, like dinner, dancing, haze leading up to disappearance, manager, no camera, footage from top floor.
Yep, dinner, dancing, death.
3 Ds.
Sucks for that person.
Yeah.
Oh, their night started off well enough. Just, you know.
Does anyone have any questions or comments for V about her mood board?
That's cool. The motion.
Thank you.
The motion, yeah. You get the feeling already. Of
I really like it.
Yeah, it's nice. It's in the color, like right beside it, the violet. And the fire behind him. Yeah, real nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would like to take, you know, the idea of using mood boards with future projects. So thank you.
Yeah, I think it's like very valuable resource. Even if you get a production designer, if you're the director or the producer or the writer and you are kind of trying to illustrate what you're going for, it's a good way to get somebody else in the same realm as you if you're having somebody else do the production design.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, because I feel like it doesn't have to be uber specific as long as it conveys the emotion, the tone, and the somewhat of the story you're trying to tell, in my opinion. I feel like that can be a good way of like, okay, this is what you're going for. When you already know the story, or you already know the basics, having that just helps you be able to paint the picture a lot more.
Mm-hmm. All right, cool. Does anyone else have a mood board exercise they want to share?
I do. I sent it.
Is it the one that says project?
Yes, that's it.
Okay, I'll download it.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot going on.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I had so many images, it was crazy. You know, on Pinterest, there was so many images, but I picked the perfect ones, like the Run DMC, the box, the beat box, it's sort of a vintage New York look on the left side. And then, and as you go to the, I guess this is the more like younger me, John Travolta. My father used to play that all the time. Well, okay, I'll give it up. It's based on a true story. So I wanted to use like the colorful part, like with John Travolta, and the hairdos. And those are really like the inspiration that like my parents had, my grandparents, my grandparent and my parents. They were so Americanized.
That's so cool though.
We teased it. Like my sister and my cousins, we used to tease it a lot.
No, but I love this. It's like an entire generation in pictures. It looks so cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I really like what's the name? In the middle with her hair, with the
Amy, is it Winehouse?
Yeah.
When you say
Winehouse,
with the hair, I'm like,
hair.
which one?
No, the one in the middle, right?
It's either that or right. Yeah. So I really like the hairdos because like if you look at it now, like people are wearing those styles. Like,
and that's inspiration from the 60s too.
Which is actually the perfect time to try to do this kind of thing.
And that's inspiration from the 60s too. I was looking at I'm going to see the movie Elvis with my mother-in-law.
Yeah,
Elvis. He's one of my favorite musicians. And so I was gonna go see it with my mother-in-law, and I was watching Priscilla Presley do all these interviews. And her hair back then, and I was like, oh my gosh, how did she carry that heavy weight on her head? Was all I could think. And now I see these girls, like, it's coming back. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's so crazy. Because 60s and the 80s, and now it took 40 years, but it's coming back again.
I think the 70s was the hottest. Let's be real, because I think people were more like, not like, they were more like, what's the word? Not they didn't regret it. They were more.
Honestly, you gotta have some poise, okay? You gotta know how to walk. I feel like if I had something that big on my head, I'd be constantly falling over. I'd be just tipping over constantly. Like, okay.
You gotta really be confident to exactly even walk out your house with an afro that big.
And you gotta hold your nose for a while to put that much hairspray on your head.
It's not easy, right? And how much time exactly to even like fix the hair to even get that.
It even hurts my arm when I try to do an updo. Goodness gracious, I can't imagine doing that.
Yeah, literally it was a problem though too, because, like my mom, rest in peace, at the time, she was, you know, ironing, like, you know, like our, like, you know, my sister's hair. So, you know, so that became a problem.
Oh yeah,
Like,
I heard about that. Yeah.
yeah. You know, there was a problem because they was doing it. It was a lot of people that were
Girls
like,
with curly hair would do that too. Yeah, to like try to straighten it because straighteners were expensive back then. Yeah.
And it ended up like becoming a problem in the you know, in the future.
No, not only that, but also like the amount of hairspray wasn't exactly good for the air either. So it's also that.
So I wanted to include things like that, like little, like, you know, little jewels in there. That's what I wanted to do.
Little details that only someone who really lived it could remember and could pay attention to. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I like how you shared. I like how you added like the hairstyles and styles of like people's clothing and different styles from different classes, like some upper class looking guys and then some lower class looking people, and then the color of the pictures as well, you know, adding that just to give the feeling of like either black and white or the sepia kind of look that you have in a few photos.
I also like that there's a mix of like the celebrities and the main culture, but also just regular people living their lives, and I thought that was really cool too.
Thank you. And that's why it's also a lookbook. Like if you look where like it starts at the top, it's like Canada. So Canada is where it's like when my grandmother and my godmother, and those were like the main women like in my, you know, my life. So they were very and so, you know, like they really were they really helped us like to be American. It was so, you know, it's so weird like you thinking about it. But they also helped me, like, you know, like I'm into a lot of different music because you know my family's into, you know, different music, but they also really like Jonathan Moulton, like all the weird beats. Like today, that's a part of the sitcom. It's like when I went to Queens and they wanted to hear what kind of music I was listening to, and I think it was like a weird. It was, what was it, a Britney Spears song? Like what? And then
that was another thing I feel like
that's
another thing that I feel like is really interesting is for example, Amy Winehouse wasn't in the 80s, but she got inspiration a lot from the 80s. Like Frank Sinatra was one of her favorite musicians, so she took inspiration from the 70s and from the 80s and those kinds of and that kind of music. I'm a big Winehouse fan. But another thing that I thought is very interesting is also seeing like how like how it back then it was somewhat of a melting pot, because you see rock, you see disco,
everywhere.
You see hip hop, you see so much, and I feel like the 70s and the 80s really encapsulated that, how
really did.
Different types of music were just blending together back then, and it was all because you hear from like older generations and even the newer ones now, there is one predominant genre, and I don't think the 70s and the 80s had that a lot. It was rock and roll mostly, but rock and roll looked so different from the Beatles and Elvis and the like more metal rock bands, and then the appearance of grunge and all this stuff. So even during rock there were different subcategories of that as well. So it's really cool that you captured that all in this.
Yeah, thank you. I really wanted to catch that, you know, like the innocence, like, you know, like it you could actually put the 70s, if you used to put the 70s in 2000, right, 2020 right now, it'd be a party.
Maybe a party some people couldn't handle.
Like, you know, exactly, because, you know, like I personally feel there was better music in the 70s. Like I'm just saying,
you're not wrong.
Soul Train, you was getting the new, you know. Now you get, you know, now you got the what do you call it? Like when you
everything sampling everything.
Sample. That's what I mean. Yeah. You belong to a label, and then you have to sound a certain way. You don't have
Back
as much.
then it was kind of like that too, but I feel like society had a little more like freedom in that sense. But yeah, I really think you did a really good job. It's really it's really eclectic. It's a great melting pot of everything that it was. There's a lot of little details. Really, really cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Great job.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I think you did a really great job. And like Vish said, nice transition of like different styles, hairstyles, and things like that through the years.
Mm-hmm.
Just capturing like the
I
essence
really
of
like
it.
the Rick James though. Like
What
Rick
was that?
James. No, Rick James. He was another like I really like Rick James. Yeah, his music was really like eclectic. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool.
Thanks.
Well, great job. Does anyone else have a mood board they'd like to share?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Something happened there. Let me share my screen.
Let me stop sharing.
So this is the mood board that I kind of came up with.
Oh, nice.
And
Oh.
essentially, I kind of took some reference from the net. You know, they had how to do the mood board. So what I did was I also put up a color palette kind of thing, which goes with each picture. And these pictures are, you know, just.
Well, you even put the names of the colors. That's specific.
Yeah. So you know, the highlight of this color is like blue or you know, glorious or whatever that basically Ned mentioned. And then this is like a silver thing, and you know, the English walnut kind of grungy look to it, and then the candlelight kind of thing. So essentially trying to project a sense of where the story would go, you know, just to give a feel of the mood you would perceive from the pictures.
Like from scene to scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because I see a mix of like of comfort and stillness and softness, but also like the stillness. It's not necessarily sad though. That's the thing. Like the shade of gray doesn't necessarily look super sad.
Oh no, the one on the left, either he's tired.
I was gonna say
the one
on the one on the left, yeah. But I just mean like I feel like there's a balance of the two. I don't know if that was what you're going for, but it feels very much like moody, but also contemplative. Is that the word I'm looking for?
Yes,
Like,
very much. I think
yeah.
that's the sense of you know that's the sense of the character, the story that I was trying to project.
Nice.
Let me know if I'm overreaching. I really like art, and I'm one of those snobby ones that are trying to find meaning in everything.
Well, that's what these reports are for.
That's really good because
yeah.
I definitely want to hear that. You know.
Good. No, but I like it. I like the colors, and you went for like specific shades as well. Because like we were talking about, there are different shades of gray and different shades of every color, and they emit different emotions. So I really like that touch, and even the different shades of yellow and orange and brown and that kind of thing. Really like it.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's something which you know, I thought I wasn't very specific as to what pictures to put, so I was randomly looking through some pictures, and but I had like a sense of what you know, not really a complete 100% sense, but I had like a vague sense of where I want to go, and based on that, I picked up the pictures.
Yeah, and just like getting an idea of like the
Right.
the mood.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be right.
Really good.
my opinion on that is like you want to have it specific and have it look like kind of like the idea of what you want to get across. But again, it's a mood board, right? So you're not going to have it like be like it has to look this way and be completely concreted in your idea, because you actually have to be able to find the locations that can be similar for the actual movie that you're going to shoot. So I think it close is kind of the idea. It's not supposed to be like perfect. It's like doing a, what's it called in science, like when you do an experiment, you do like your hypothesis or whatever. It's not meant to be 100% accurate, I think.
No, yeah, I feel like for
General
us,
idea.
we were taking from our like feature idea, and it's a futuristic type of theme. So it was very like we couldn't find exactly what we were looking for, but we were trying to as close as possible to convey the mood, the tone, to convey the look that we wanted to go for, the color scheme, and also the living conditions, the mentality of the people living there, and that kind of thing. So like you're never going to find the exact thing you're looking for, because otherwise, you know, you wouldn't be making a film if something like it already existed. So it's never going to be exactly what you're going for, but as long as you can convey the emotion, the basics of the story, the look you're going for, that kind of thing, I feel like that would already be a huge help, because you're pitching your story and you just, all you want to do is show the person, okay, you heard it, you heard what I'm going for. Now this is, so it's in your mind, so you can have an idea of what it's going to look like, so you can see it in your head like I see it, or at least similar to like I see it.
Right. So I think, you know, when I started off, like I selected this this picture with a bridge saying that it's like a long road.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, this picture was more like the light of hope. And this was where the current status is.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is where, you know, you're seeing a specific area of growth or something like that. So that's something which I had initially in the mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a depicting the hope and inspiration in some ways, you know, and a guiding light kind of thing.
I definitely see that there's a theme throughout.
Yeah.
Light and dark and like shadow type of thing.
Yeah, I feel like the top left image shows like very hopeful, serene kind of feel.
Even with the like the candle and everything, and even with, and even in the window you can see shades of light, even though it looks like it could, for example, like an image like that window, they could have chosen to have it like a darker shade and look at gloomy and a horror movie feel or whatever, but there's a little light, so that
right.
even that emits emotion.
Yeah, I think the mood board kind of helps to get the initial, you know, picture, and it's like if you don't have anything else, you can always quickly generate a mood board, and you know, to mention what you have in mind. So I think it's a very great tool to. I didn't really realize the importance of it until I kind of put it together. It's fairly quickly you can come through as to what you have in mind. You know, whereas like a lookboard, what is that? Lookbook is kind of a little bit more detailed.
Yeah,
and it takes longer time.
Yeah.
Conceptually, if you have anything in mind that you want to complete, you know, put it together, and you know, you just have not necessarily for the film project, but also for any other project that you may have. Kind of is very helpful.
I also think it's helpful for like each person individually. If you're writing, like for me, I'm still writing the idea we have, and it's a lot easier to picture everything whenever you start putting it into a mood board and you start seeing, oh, what am I missing? And you know, you think about these things that like you wouldn't think about while you're writing, and that actually, for me anyway, helps like me write further, because then I'm kind of in that world already. I'm in, like I had it in my head, but now I can really see it coming to life.
Definitely.
So that's another. So yeah, mood boards are great for either like just to get a better sense of the idea for yourself, to illustrate it to somebody for pitch, if you're pitching it to somebody to try to get them involved, or to try to get financing, of course. And then
I feel like
then just to illustrate it to your crew so everyone has the same idea of what we're going for. Because you could say a bridge with a sunset at the end of it, and
they can imagine.
One person might think of this image you have, but the rest might think of like a sideways view of the bridge and this and that. And so like everyone will see it differently. And so that's I think it's really good to get the,
I was gonna say, I'd go further. I'd go further and even say, if you are creating your script and you're writing your story and you're trying to, I feel like this might be a really good exercise for someone who is trying to get the story across, even if they're not showing it to people yet. Just showing the mood board, like you said, it helped you figure out so many things and see it come to life. So I feel like this would be a really good exercise for people that are creating their work as well, just for themselves, so they can try to get the emotion they're going for across, or try to figure it out. Okay, this right here, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, not just mine. I think, you know, with the even the mood boards that we saw, the earlier two ones, right?
From V and from Gabe, yeah.
Yeah, so both of them were excellent, like a starting point where you know, it starts a conversation, because already you know, first time we looked at it, and then there was like a big discussion around it, and it's definitely serving the purpose, right?
Right.
Because you know, you started from a blank piece of paper, and then you put together things. And as you mentioned, I think with those, each picture, you have different stories that you can write, and especially when you're doing a you know, writing a story or a script, it comes out pretty handy, and gives you direction. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Did you have the color one, or was this part of that?
This
Since
was
you're already sharing your screen.
yeah. The other one, let's see where. Let's see. Okay. Let me look for it. Why don't you go ahead? I'll...
All right. Can you, yeah. All right. I was like, can you stop sharing then? Let me show ours. So ours is based on. Let me pull it up. So here's ours.
Maybe
ours
get that back
on,
image out of the frame, honey, so it doesn't. So it's easier to focus.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just full screen this there.
Yeah. Just because that way it doesn't. Okay, well, I don't know. From my eyes, it's a lot.
So with ours, it's a feature film that I've been writing out, and I've been thinking about like, and it's a sci-fi movie that they live underground. And they have some futuristic tech and stuff like that, but for them, it's kind of like a mixture between looking like it's old mixed with some new. And so I tried to like convey that through the photos, and I had a lot of ideas from like video games and movies, sci-fi movies that I've seen that come together to show it.
Right. Sorry?
Can you unrecord this? You know, since you're discussing concept here, your story writing. So I don't know.
I mean, I'm fine with sharing this part of it.
Okay.
If anyone wants me to like cut out their part, I can. But so what the idea is that it's like it's a futuristic film where everyone lives underground, and the concept comes from like seeing what the area looks like. What do they look like when they live underground? What kind of technology do they have? We did we did the color on the left, and we kind of matched.
It's somewhat of a dystopian mixed, a dystopian type of feel.
Mm-hmm. And so for the mood board on the left, we did the colors, like the color palette. It's a lot of blues, a lot of grays. I mean, not blues. It's a lot of bluish gray, gray, and browns. And that's like the browns in the cave. People's clothing, it's still sort of stylistic, but they are more earthy tones and things like that, because they live underground and they don't really have the resources to do a bunch of color. And it wouldn't really matter anyway, because underground it's not going to be as bright. So we just figured that they probably wouldn't worry about that as much.
So the way that we thought about it, and when we were discussing wardrobe, I was like, I was telling him everyone now is using, well, now we're going back to colorful, but before there was this whole focus on neutrals. And I was like, I feel like that is kind of it matches futuristically in some way, because back then everyone thought everyone would wear chromatic colors and bright colors and neons and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, neutrals can look good. No, it's not very classist, for example. Like you have neutrals for like basic clothing and you have neutrals for fancy clothing. You can wear up or down. There isn't as much of, I mean, obviously, the type of clothing shows status, but lately a lot of people wearing very basics and stuff that, I could get that. I could wear that, and it's just different variations of it. And so it's not going to look like that, but we were like, oh, well, these things can kind of portray like, especially the men's. I think the men's is a better representation than the women's, but just like basic neutral clothing, especially if you're living underground, like colors won't reflect as much because there's not as much sunlight. So there wouldn't be as much of like lights bouncing off and that kind of thing. And there wouldn't be as much focus on clothing as much, because it's a society that's supposed to not like from the outside at least seem like there's no class system and everyone's equal. And so we just thought that the neutrals was a good fit for that theme, basically.
Yeah, and so we chose like something like that, and that was something I hadn't really considered before doing the mood board. And then when I talked to Priscilla about it, we kind of hashed out why they would, why they might not, and came up with this as a reason and as a like what the look would be like. So that was like something I didn't think of, like clothing and things like that, because I was just focused on the story as much. But now it's a little bit easier, just like kind of given what everyone looks like while they're going around. And then some of these other things, like have you guys ever heard of a video game called Red Faction? That's kind of, it gives a really good look of like what I'm kind of going for. It sort of looks run down, but it's also looking kind of like futuristic in some aspects in some areas, but it's a lot of browns, grays, and kind of like a mixture between the two.
The way that he explained it, oh, sorry, honey, go ahead. I was just going to say, the way that he explained it to me that I thought was really good was like, yeah, they're in the future and they have this technology, but they also live underground and they're building underground. So if anyone's ever seen like 12 Monkeys, I would imagine it'd be something kind of like that, like underground and kind of dingy, but also futuristic.
Yeah, because the resources have to go to something, so they don't want to put all the resources to the outside as much as the inside. The interiors are more advanced than the exteriors, and the exteriors kind of just like carved out. And then like I had the idea of the interiors kind of being like how it was in Blade Runner or something similar to that, where it's very sleek, but also there's not much going on. There's not much personality to it. This is specifically for the main character, since he doesn't really buy a lot of things. He doesn't have a lot of stuff going on in his apartment. So it looks kind of just, it looks sleek, it looks futuristic and nice design, but it doesn't really have any personality as far as like individuality.
The reason that we're like comfortable sharing this is basically just because, first of all, we're not saying every single detail of the story, obviously. So even if someone does use these concepts, we are all using concepts that were from other movies or other images. So it's not going to look exactly like this anyway. And we're not exactly sharing the details of every single part of the story anyway. So we're comfortable sharing it because of that. mostly.
Too late. I got my notes.
Hey, if you want to try to make it, I'm sure we'll come out with 2 different films at the end anyway. So the main character, he's a supervisor, and they're mining, they're expanding the underground in the story. And so like I had the idea that they would be futuristic with the equipment they use. That's the bottom right, like a mining laser or something similar to that. But the uniforms and the way the ground looks and how they expand through it, I got the same idea. It's like very similar to these photos. And so that's like his main job. He's a supervisor. He's a good supervisor to them, and he's helping them out, and like takes the fall when they need to, and things like that, and lets them have breaks so they don't kill themselves, basically. And then later on in the story, he gets another job at kind of a factory. I couldn't really find exactly what I was looking for, so I kind of just took some factory images and gave them a little bit of like a grayer, reddish tint. It would be more like, if I could find it, it would look more like this, the top left, but it would still be factory. So like with a factory, I felt like they wouldn't put as much resources into the surrounding area and everything, but whatever they're creating inside of that factory would be the tech, the gear. So it would look, futuristic, but it would also be mixed with that kind of old. And then one of the main locations that they go to a few times throughout the script is going to be in this bar. So it's an underground bar. I figured that could have some color and that could have some style to it, but it would also be just kind of carved out from underground. So I actually found some real life examples, as well as some from like video games and things like that. And then the technology that they use, they're always getting advertised to. They have a bunch of advertisements to spend their money on things like entertainment or clothing or whatever.
So it was
they're
very
coming
Blade
out with.
Runner-esque, very of that Tom Cruise movie that I always forget the name of.
Minority Report?
Minority Report, yes. Very Minority Report, very Blade Runner type of feel.
Yeah, and so I actually like picked up the kind of like the holographic type of ads, or like maybe just like a one sheet of glass, and then you walk past it and it has like this advertisement playing on it, something similar to that kind of idea. And then the other technology they use is they wear like this wristwatch that has a holographic display, where that's basically what they use to pay for everything they have. So it's kind of like an Apple Watch in a way, but holographic.
Yeah.
And that plays a main part in the story. So I kind of tried to add like the main things throughout the story, the looks. And then one other thing that is becoming more of a main thing as I'm writing it is what's going to be this light festival that they celebrate. And it's a big thing because they don't really have light. They live underground. So I thought like they would go all out for this thing, and they would have a lot of kind of lanterns. They might not let them go into the air, but they'd have like a lot of these like lit up lanterns and decorations everywhere. And the city might be lit up all over the place when you look at it. They could have these cool colors and these.
Because they don't have nature the way that you have up. So it's just to remember colors and brightness and joy and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's what like they celebrate that, and it's also to get the people to be entertained while they're underground, because they don't want them to just feel like they're living in this kind of environment. They want them to have a little excitement, a little fun whenever they can. So
yeah, so obviously it's not the entire thing. I think that we're probably going to expand on this over time, a few things here and there. But I feel like the main world building, I think that we managed to figure out, which was really good. The main feelings, because, workers, but also you're underground, but you also are distracted by all of the technology and the day-to-day, but you also have little moments of levity. So we kind of mix in the different, I think we, like I said, hopefully to expand on it, but I feel like we mixed in well the different aspects of their lives. And yeah, so it was a lot of fun. Coda, and I have very different, like in
One
the
thing,
beginning.
wait, before you say anything, one thing I realized when I was doing this, I have had deep discussions with Priscilla. She's read over the scenes I've written so far about the script. She knows the ending, she knows the beginning, she knows the middle. And I noticed, like, even when all of that is explained, she still had a different idea in her head than I did about how this area looks, what stuff like that. Like the one thing that we came up with together, actually the two things, was mainly the Lights Festival stuff and the clothing that they wore. Everything else, it seemed like we had different ideas in a way.
I helped with the underground bar. You didn't think of KOTOR until I said it.
True. I'm just saying, like, we both had a different idea of, I had to explain like exactly what I was thinking, and I have to explain it in multiple ways so that she started getting the idea and like coming up with images that were similar to what I was thinking at first. Because at first, when we started discussing it, we had very different ideas of what it was. So I thought it was really interesting that even if you explain it with someone, even if they know the story, they still aren't going to get exactly what's in your head, and they're going to have their own vision of it, which is why another reason why I don't really mind sharing some script ideas and stuff like that, because two people are they're gonna have a different outcome unless it's like extremely specific and unique.
Mm-hmm. And even then, the writing might suck on one, that too. So one might be the dialogue. Plus, we didn't give you guys the middle or the end of the story. We just gave you some basics. You can't guess the entire thing just from this. You want to try, Brian?
Writing it down.
Go ahead, Brian.
But yeah, it was very fun to do.
If you come up with the same story I did, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, well,
it's not like it's unheard of, but I would still be like, dang, how did he do that?
I'll see you in the theater. Fancy meeting you here.
We'll both showcase our film at the same time and see what the audience thinks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, didn't we just watch this film?
No, but for real though, I've seen, especially, I don't know about you guys, but when we were watching Minority Report and oh, I don't think I watched it with you guys, but there's Minority Report. There's another movie about
we watched Minority Report with them. Yeah.
No, but I don't know if we watched all of the movies with them. We watched Minority Report, and then we watched another movie with his mother, my mother-in-law, about this guy who cuts film, and it's Robin Williams, and it reminded me a lot of Minority Report, and then it reminded me a lot of Blade Runner in many ways, because it's also set in the future, and it also, they have like chips in their memories. Basically their brain has like these things, and they keep a log of everything that they live in their lives, and so when they die, this person is in charge of like taking all of the footage that they see and cutting down only the good parts, basically.
Oh, is that the one that had Robin Williams?
Yeah, that's what I just said. Robin Williams. We're not paying attention. I swear when I talk, there's like a button in his brain that's like, checking out. Just sometimes.
Picking up the important bits.
Yeah, I do talk a lot, so it's fair. But basically, yeah, so it was a very interesting concept, and I was like, crazy. But it reminded me of a lot of other movies, and I noticed that Rememory is another one. It has the guy who played Tyrion Lannister in Game of Thrones. Forgot his name. That was it's a really, really good movie, but it has a similar concept about keeping your about seeing all of your memories and all this stuff. So all of these
Black Mirror
movies,
has a concept sort of like that too.
Exactly. So we watched multiple different movies that had incredibly similar concepts and even stories. There was another one that I don't remember. We watched on Netflix that this guy was trying to solve a murder, and the person, you could like see what they saw, but this hacker like hacked their brain so you couldn't see who the killer was, and the ending was horrible. But the concept was really cool, and the movie was really interesting for the most part. So all of those movies are super similar and have super similar concepts and storylines, and yet they're very different in some ways, and they stood out on their own. So at the end of the day, I've just seen so many movies with almost like, hey, this reminds me of that, this reminds me of that, this reminds me of that, but it's unique in its own way. Which
so the concept idea first came from there was this Black Mirror episode actually that they were all living, I don't know if it was underground, but it was like in a facility where the guy was like riding a bike to earn points. I don't remember the name of the episode. I think it's like 500 million, I don't know, something with million in the name. It was Black Mirror episode, and it's futuristic, but they kind of have to earn points to be able to do anything, and they do that by working, and then he like enters a talent show to try to win to get out of his day-to-day life. And so that's kind of where the idea came from, and then it expanded from there and became its own thing. But that was the original, that was the initial idea that I got from it.
And again, when Coda pitched me that idea, hey, did you ever see that Black Mirror episode about the points and all that stuff? And I was like, no, but I've seen something similar to that. Like, I already was like, I've never seen that episode until recently, but I knew that concept because I've seen it somewhere before. So even then, you can kind of see that people can take the same concept, the same idea, and make it into completely different stories.
15 million merits. So that's where the original concept started coming from. And then I came up with them living underground, and it's future mixed with kind of old and stuff like that. But the advertising and that type of stuff, kind of, I got the idea really from that episode for the inspiration for it.
Yeah. But it was really fun. In the beginning, it was kind of complicated because I had my idea of how I wanted it, and I wanted it very structured. And it ended up being more structured than you, like the way you sounded like it was going to be, mostly because I helped, but still.
You didn't help.
I helped build it.
You didn't help build it. I did the layout. She's trying to claim.
Oh my gosh, I'm the one.
I'm just
move this here, move this there.
Sorry, go ahead, Vish.
I'm just curious as to which pictures you selected and which pictures Priscilla selected.
All of the pictures of the underground stuff were my idea, because I was like, hey, I went to a Chinese lantern festival in New Zealand once, and it was beautiful, and the lanterns looked so unique, and they were everywhere. And so I told him that. And I showed him images of that. The only one that he had.
Let me really show you which ones are which, because she's lying.
What? You know,
bottom left on the Lights Festival is mine. Top right on the Lights Festival is mine. And this one with the blue lights, and this one with the lanterns that are floating up into the air. Those four are mine, and the rest are hers. The lanterns, the Chinese lanterns, and the colorful ones in the festival. It does look a lot more like a festival than the one she selected. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying those are hers. The other ones are mine. I selected some of the apartment stuff. She selected some. I selected all of his work, both of them.
Because he didn't like the ones I selected.
With the ads, she helped me think of like where we could find the references for it. So we both kind of worked on that of like,
and I gave
what we've seen that's kind of similar to the holographic type of ads that we were thinking of. The bar, she helped me with some of them I got from real examples afterward. The watch, we kind of both thought of it and looked up at the same time. The clothing was mostly her. Actually, it was all her, and I just selected which ones I liked the best. And then the top ones, the actual area, that was all me.
I showed a bunch, and he hated every single one of them and said it was too futuristic looking.
Yeah, because I had a very specific look that I was going for. And that's what I was meaning when I'm like we both knew what it was, but we both had a completely different idea of like the overall look. So it was interesting to see, or to hear anyway.
Yeah. Thank you, Vish.
I'm not, no, yeah.
I just mean that when we went into it, I was like, okay, so we're going to do like this. And he's like, honey, you want it way too structured. A mood board is supposed to be a little all over the place. It's supposed to be a little, and I was like, no, I don't. And this is exactly what I had in mind, like the color scheme on the corner, and then the images matching the color schemes and all this stuff. And before I got there, you wanted to put the colors on top and the images all over the place. And like, that's what I had in mind. But you made it seem like yours was going to be just screwing about, and mine was going to be like like color coded numeric whatever.
Well, there's no wrong way to do a mood board. I want to say, like, Vicious is very organized and very like structured.
No, I'm not saying there's a wrong way.
Gabe's was a lot more, you know, all over the place, but they both work for what they are. And like, so there's multiple ways to do these.
No, definitely.
So I just wanted to do mine more like how Gabe did his, and it seemed like Priscilla wanted to do it more like Vish. And so that was like something we were like, well, you know, you have to do it one way or the other.
And so at first he was like, I don't know if you should help with this because yours is going to be way too structured and that's not how I want it to be. And so later when he was like, I can't think of this. And I was like, okay, now can I help? And then I did it. I feel like we found a really good compromise between the two of us with this one. I feel like we did a good job at compromising.
But yeah, that was the idea. So does anyone else have any of the mood board exercises that they want to share? I think everybody shared already, maybe. But I did want to bring that up. Is like, it is hard to, that's why I think as either a director or a writer, if you're going to try to direct it or try to like kind of showcase your idea to someone else, if you're getting a production designer on board, I feel like making your own mood board might benefit you to get them more on your page of what you're going for. So there's less confusion and there's less, oh, you said this, I thought it was going to be more like that. And like, because there can be a lot of confusion over that type of stuff, no matter who you are, no matter who you have and how long you've worked together. Like, there's always is, because they just have a different thing in your mind about what it looks like, what it's going to be.
Especially because we're not only are we together all the time, and I know the story very well, but we're also married and I know his brain very well. So even then I couldn't, like, I've guessed what he was going to say. I guessed what he thinks. It's like, we're pretty in sync in a lot of ways. But even in that, I was like, okay, I can't exactly picture. And I know you really well, and I know your mind really well, and I still can't picture exactly what you're going for.
Right. So I think it'd be a good idea if you are trying to bring it to someone new, or if you're trying to bring it to someone you already know, and you're going to pass off unless you're just fine with them taking over altogether of the production design. I think it's a good idea to make a mood board, even if it's, you know, just a few pictures, or if it's really complex, however many you want to do. But that way you can showcase the general mood that you're going for. This looks something like this, not exactly, but at least that gets them on the same page, so that they can bring something a little bit closer to what you're going for to the table, instead of, you know, going off and making something completely different. So that's just some advice I would say to you.
And I feel that, you know, having two people in the project really helps, because, you know, everybody has their different perspective. Mm-hmm. From that respect, you know, your story has different colors to it. And secondly, once you have something like this, you know, the mood board, and when you pitch it, you have, you know, you're better supported, because two people are going to be having, you know, their story based on the pictures that they have put on the mood board.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah. And usually I think great tool for showing it to producers or, you know, cinematographers. So they have like a very clear, I think your mood board was really very explicit, and you went from, you know, costumes to the look and feel and the locations. So felt like it very well captured the clusters of what you're going for in the story. Mm-hmm. And it could be based on the locations, based storyline, you know, different stories going on parallelly, and just setting the mood itself, you know, whether it's outside, inside kind of thing.
Yeah. With
colors and everything.
I would change some of the shades probably of some of the colors, because it is a lot more grittier. but I do agree. I feel like it helps as also for you to have someone to bounce ideas off of, and also to see if what you're trying to explain is coming across when you have someone else.
Right.
Because not, of course, everyone's going to think differently, and some people might get it, and some people might not. But I feel
especially somebody like you, I think, which is kind of nice to have.
Just kind of
nothing bad, but I'm saying it's always good to have.
I just like the way you said that. It did seem like it was bad.
Yeah, which is kind of what I'm curious now. What?
No, so I think
very opinionated.
Oh, really, that's what he means.
Not opinionated. What I meant was, it's good to have. Sometimes it's very difficult to do a self-critique on things because you're one-tracked. You're always thinking in one direction. But if you have somebody else, so they're critiquing it, so it's like a constructive criticism.
That I'm a good critic of it.
Yeah. I didn't really do anything.
Yeah.
See, some people are kind.
You're good.
Yeah, some people are kind of like you're critiquing everything, right? And there is a positive thing to that because you tend to go a little bit more deeper into things. And
yeah, definitely. Yeah, like with scripts, with looking, even like what she was saying, like the colors are should be more gritty and stuff like that. Like that's something you have to like look into. I'm like, oh, should they? And then you consider it, and
right.
Yeah,
I
definitely agree that having the more in-depth feedback over all the stuff really helps with like writing and just creating it. And like you were saying, with being a team in it, I feel like once you finally come to an agreement and you have another person there, whether it's just your production designer or your cinematographer, and they're helping you pick shots, you'll both be fighting for it at that point. So you have double the people that want it to happen.
I also like to think, and Coda can correct me on this, but I like to think that I am a good balance of critiquing and supporting. I can be very supportive of your idea, but I can also show the parts of it that are crap and or that need work is a much more polite way of saying it. But yeah, so I feel like I'm a lot more critical with his because I have the freedom to. I feel like if it were someone who came to me and I was like, what do you think of this? And I didn't know them, I'd be a lot more like afraid to critique or give, because I don't know the person. I don't know how they respond to criticism or the best way to critique them would be. And that's another thing you have to think of, which is, but yeah, so I feel like having someone that that's why a lot of teams pair up together, like cinematographers and work with the same directors, and directors are the same cinematographers, because it's good to have someone well and that knows you well, at least your creative side well and your work side well, to where you can critique each other and bounce ideas off of each other in a free space, in a comfortable space.
Yeah, well, it's a devil is in the details, right?
Yeah.
But all right, so moving on from our exercise, we do have some things we're going to go over today. Hopefully, they don't take too long.
Okay, mine will be done probably by the end. I'm just finishing up the last touches while I'm listening and watching you guys. Like I'm panning back and forth.
Okay, no problem.
Cool.
All right, so film festival tips. So this is just some advice. We were talking about film festivals Monday, so we're gonna finish up. Well, I don't know if it's completely finished up, but we're gonna continue on talking about film festival, some tips and advice at first, and then some of the scams that people say to watch out for. So this stuff comes from Film It Yourself. It's letter A in the syllabus under tips and advice for film festivals. Tips to know before submitting to film festivals. So they say most programmers will only be able to watch the first 5 minutes and the last 10 minutes of feature films, and the first and last 2 minutes of shorts. So be sure the beginning and the end of your film are the best that they can be before you submit. That's why you really have to try to have something that draws people in and leaves them wanting more or leaves them satisfied. And because with festivals, they have the programmers have so many movies coming in, so many submissions. Like we saw Sundance last week, they said think it was 2016 or 17, they had like 4,000 submissions for feature films and 9,000 for short films. So clearly they can't watch the entire thing, or they'd need like a team of a few, like 100 or two to actually watch everything all the way through.
Maybe they have that. Maybe we just don't know.
No. Festivals usually have programmers. I don't know how many, but it's probably a team under 10 or something like that. Maybe the bigger ones have more, I'm not sure, but I do know that the programmers are usually also the judges, or they're
I feel like
kind of a mix, and the judges, there's not that many of them usually.
And that's probably why the submission dates are so important too, because you get it early so they have enough time to watch everything, and the later you get it, the more like, oh, that's another thing that we're going to have to watch last minute, or something that we might not even get to,
right,
depending on how many submissions. So that's something to keep in mind as well. They might not even get to you if you submit late, if they have a bunch of submissions.
And then they say you also want to make sure you have what's called an EPK, or an electronic press kit, which is just, information about your actors, some stills, some of their photographs, some information about the production and how it worked and who the cast is and the crew, and some other information about that you would use if you were trying to go to like what is it called? Like a Q&A session of the people, the panel that is in the film, stuff like that. You'll have this information so people know what it is. Same thing when you're doing a festival, you want to kind of give the information of who worked on this film, how is it different? Is the crew different? Is the cast different? Or, what sets you apart? And that kind of stuff. So electronic press kit is something you definitely want when you're submitting to festivals. Should include information about the film, like the poster, the synopsis, logline, key cast and crew bios, contact details, a full credits list, any technical specifications like the title, the genre, the production year, country of origin, language, runtime, aspect ratio, and more of those technical kind of things as well as promotional stills from the film. They also say the earlier you try to submit is usually better, because first of all, you'll get the cheaper fees, like we talked about Monday, but also it may help the programmers, like Priscilla just said, have your project in their mind early, and also give them the chance to really view it, not be like, oh, there's another one, but be like, this is the start of all of the film. So getting it in early is like a lot better for the most part, because then it's already seen by the programmers and it's not something that they have to do last minute. Also, it might be better as the time slots will be empty. So they'll have an easier time slotting your film than if you submit later. If they want to select your film, especially if it's a weird time, like a longer short film or something like that, or a shorter feature film, they may have a harder time slotting that to make it work. But if you start from as early as you can, the time slot will be completely freed up, so they'll have an easier time slotting it somewhere, or at least in keeping in mind where they might slot it if they wait until the very end to slot everything. And so typically speaking, they kind of slot it as they go. I would assume that they wouldn't wait until the very end, because it's a lot harder to put everything together at that point. If you're a judge and you're watching a bunch of films, you're going to kind of, even if you don't officially select a film, you're going to have an idea of which ones you're going to pick by the time you get to the last ones. So just keep that in mind, because the earlier it is, the better chance you have of them picking it over something that comes later, just because it came later, if they're the same quality and everything. With the time slots and runtime, remember for short films, it's usually always better to have shorter ones, because they're easier to slot and fit somewhere, because they do those in blocks with other short films. So you want to be able to slot it in with a bunch of different short films all together, instead of having like, well, mine's 40 minutes and they only have a 90-minute time slot. It's a lot harder for them to use yours, because then they have to kick out a few other short films that maybe are 5 to 10 minutes. And so it'll be not necessarily saying they don't, but it is easier to support 4 or 5 filmmakers than it is to just support one. For feature films, they typically want between 60 to 120 minutes. And then there's also something called micro shorts, which are short films that are 5 minutes or less. You also, like we said, Monday, you want to try to keep the world premiere for the largest festival you are accepted into, because most festivals don't want a film that is already posted somewhere or has already premiered at a smaller festival or even a different festival, if it's a big one. Talked about this already, but do your research, look into the film festivals and what they normally offer. Does your film match that genre style, the tune, and all the tone, and all of that type of stuff. Before you even begin production, you want to price in a festival run into your budget if you plan on submitting to them later. There's a lot of price that goes in with that, so you want to have enough money to be able to do it. And if you get accepted, you want to be able to have enough money to go. So you have to think of all those costs. Also, they say to prepare for rejection and don't lose faith in your project if you're not accepted into any festivals. You may have a commercial film and it's just not really a festival film, so it's not really as artsy. It's just a more commercially viable film. So it doesn't mean it's a bad film. It just means it doesn't work for the festivals. This next stuff comes from blog.pond5.com. It's letter K in the syllabus. Right there. You want to be realistic with the festivals you can get into. You may have a great story with good cinematography and acting, but if your film isn't a huge budget or it doesn't have any big stars, then you're most likely not going to be able to get into the festivals like Sundance, Cannes, or some of the other major festivals. It doesn't mean it's not possible, but it definitely is more of the exception if you get into those than the rule if you don't have a huge budget and you don't have any big stars or big named crew. So be realistic with your expectations of which ones you can get into. Make sure you submit a finished film and not a rough cut. Some might ask for to see it, but don't send a rough cut to anybody. Wait until it's finished because they might make up their minds before they even get a chance to see the actual film, because they're like, oh, this is crap. But the rough cut's going to be way worse than the finished product, or hopefully anyway. So, and also most festivals aren't going to ask for a rough cut. They're going to want a finished film. So don't just send a rough cut to show them what it's like. Wait until you're finished. You always want to attend if you are able. The festivals like people that attend more, so they're more likely to give you the chance to go or to accept you. Some require you to go if you're going to be accepted, depending on how big it is and things like that. The smaller ones sometimes require it because they want people to go to the festival and support you, especially if it's a local one. So they may be like, well, you're accepted, but you have to show up because we want to do a Q&A and we want to, they won't explicitly tell you, but they want you to invite your crew, your cast, your family, your friends to come see the movie and buy tickets so that their festival can earn some kind of revenue. You always want to be passionate and promote your film, and consider doing private screenings with people you trust so you can find issues that may be able to be fixed before submitting to a festival. So if you have time before a festival submission date, maybe you finished your film in February and you're trying to get into Sundance, so it's 5 or 6 months away, I think. Consider sending it to people or having them come to you and watch it privately so that they can give you feedback. People that you trust, that know movies, that know films, filmmakers, fellow filmmakers, friends, that will tell you the truth and won't just say, yeah, it's great, because they're your friend. But yeah, you really want to try to find issues, get some of the criticism, like maybe the ending's not working and you have some other footage you could use, or maybe some kind of edit was weird and you can do something with it. So you want to get that kind of feedback from people that aren't going to reject you from a festival. That way you can change it before you try to submit to the festivals. All right, moving on from that, we're talking about film festival red flags and scams. There are plenty of legitimate, large, medium, and small festivals out there. However, you always want to be aware of the ones that are possibly scams. Some of the stuff that sounds a little fishy and could be seen as a red flag. So this stuff comes from Lixie Studios, letter A in the syllabus under film festival scams. Some scam festivals have a huge amount of people win awards, but they then have to pay to receive them. I actually talked about that on Monday. So they just give out awards to everybody. And then they're like, oh, it's going to cost you $50 or it's going to cost you $20 to actually get the award. Some award multiple films the same award. So they're just trying to give out as many awards as they can so that they can try to dupe them into giving them money for the award. So, you know, best actor goes to this film. But if you actually look at their site or you look at who won best actor, it goes to like 7 different films or 8 different films that submitted. So it's not, how is that best actor if it's 8 films getting it, that kind of thing. Other scam festivals make up a multitude of awards to give out. So they get very specific or very like niche and weird with the award. If it doesn't sound like it's something that would be real, it's usually just like a made up thing so they can try to give awards out to more people, whether they make you pay for them or not. It just means they're trying to collect as much submission fees and then give people awards so they can feel good. Oh, my film won an award. And so a lot of scam festivals will do that, where they're just trying to get submission fees as much as they can. And then they're like, they're hoping you don't actually go and attend it because they might not even actually show it. They might just send out an award to you and say, yeah, you won best actor over the age of 50. You know, because we had 7 other awards for best actor if they were different ages, and that kind of thing. Just to kind of like spread out the awards more, and that way the people who submitted feel good and like, oh, that's awesome, and don't question whether this was real or not. So that's something to look out for. Like what awards are going to be given out, because they should list that on their website. Some festivals' red flags are if they try to sell merchandise on their website or make that a prominent part of their site. So if you go on some of the more legitimate ones like Sundance and Cannes, they have merchandise somewhere. I don't even know if it's on their site, but I do know you can get merchandise for those festivals. So it's not immediately illegitimate if they are selling merchandise. But if they're making that like the main thing, like, oh, buy the merchandise, and it's like the main thing of their page, that's a red flag to look out for, because it probably just means that they're trying to get people to buy that stuff, and they're not showcasing their festival, they're showcasing their merchandise. And so that's something to watch out for. Like I said, some festivals are scams and they're only trying to get submission fees. They charge large amounts, like 150 to 350 or more just to submit. And then they don't even watch the film. They just either give it a rejection or they accept it and give you an award, which, you know, they didn't actually watch it. But some of them will just reject everybody and just take all the submission fees. There are scams that promise everything in their festival, but offer none of them. Some festival scams say they'll give feedback. So you may be paying the submission fee just for them to give feedback and reject the film automatically. If a festival is having its first time, you may want to avoid it just because no one will know if it's legitimate yet. So it doesn't necessarily mean it is. It's harder to tell when they're brand new if they're going to be or not.
Wait, crap. Okay, oh, sorry, I'm unmuted. Dang it, I thought I was muted for that time. Sorry if you guys heard me filling up the water bottle. But I was gonna say a caveat to that I would say is it also depends on who is hosting, because there have been like new festivals opening up from major companies and stuff like that. So you also have to look at who's opening the festival, because it might not always be the case. Like, oh, it's a new festival, therefore it's probably not legitimate or it's probably not good. So that's also something to keep in mind is like, who created the festival? Is it a small company? Is it unknown? Is it a huge corporation? And if it is, who has already like said that they will be in attendance? That kind of thing. Because you might run into the whole Fire Festival situation where you have, oh yeah, these people are big names, but who's hosting it? Like, even if you have, oh, these people are coming and they're promising all these people, but who's actually the company hosting it? It's a no name, you don't know them, you never heard of them, then yeah, maybe they're over promising, maybe it's a scam, maybe you might end up in the middle of nowhere with tents and a box of cheese sandwiches.
Worst case scenario, yeah.
It happened.
But yeah, like so you want to be aware of that as well. Like I said, like it doesn't automatically mean that it's not legitimate. It just means it's a lot harder to tell because nobody knows if it's legitimate. Nobody knows what happens at that festival because it never happened before. It's this brand new, this is the first time they're doing it festival. So it's also harder to tell, even if they are kind of well known, it's harder to tell, are they going to run this properly? Do they know what they're doing? Because even if it's people who have been in the industry before, maybe it's an old actor, maybe it's an old filmmaker, like that doesn't mean they know how to run a festival. So it is still
I would
a
say
red flag. It doesn't it doesn't automatically mean scam. It just means it's something to look out for. That's what red flags are.
Yeah, I would say look at the history. For example, let's say an artist or an actor wants to create a film festival, right? Because he loves it and he wants to give people more opportunities. All right, he's well known, but who is he working with? What production company is he getting to host that festival, to organize that festival? All right, what are their credentials? What have they done before? What's their work experience? Even if they have small work experience, what are the reviews of the people that have used their services or the experience that they do have? Are there pictures, videos, testimonials of people like, oh, they did my event, it was really, really good? Because sometimes you run into, oh, this big name wants to give this up and coming company a chance to produce or help manage this new endeavor that they have. All right, that doesn't necessarily mean it's illegitimate, but you have to look at the track record of that company, and it's always going to be somewhat of a risk, but more often than not, you can do your research and find online information about the place, about the organization that's funding it or that's producing it, that's managing it, and that extra research really does make a difference too, so that you're not scammed and like, oh, well, this big name actor is a part of it. Yeah, but are they working with a reliable company or a company that's good? Because then, celebrities get scammed too. Big people get scammed too.
Yeah, and I would say, I don't know. For me, I would say, like with first-time festivals, there's so many festivals out there that
it's not always worth it.
I would probably avoid for the most part. Maybe if one was like super local or something, but I would avoid for the most part brand new ones, just because one, you don't know how legitimate it is. Two, even if it does seem legitimate, you don't know how it's going to be run. Three, nobody knows about it as much, so there won't be as many people regardless, whether that's filmmakers, distributors aren't going to go to it.
So the chances of you getting your film out there are going to be way smaller, and that's the main point of festivals for beginners for the most part, is making connections and getting your film out. If that's not serving you,
I would say I would avoid it for the most part, unless it's like a very specific one or very specific location for it. But it's up to each individual.
Or if it's free.
Just do your homework and make sure you do some research on who's running it, especially if it's the first time. If they have done it before, you still want to do your research and talk to filmmakers that have shown a film at that festival. You can look at the previous years and see who did it and look at the credits and all that. And then ask them if the festival was held, when and where it was, and how the experience was. Did they feel like it was a scam? Did it feel sketchy? Or did it feel like a real legitimate festival? Vish, no, he said nothing is free. Yeah,
And I said
usually.
exactly.
Some
exactly.
actually
So if they say
are
it's free,
free. Some festivals are free, and that is that's not necessarily a red flag, but I would say it kind of is, because then they might do that whole like, you won the award, but you gotta pay.
yeah,
And
I was
that's
gonna
usually how
say
they get you.
sometimes it's free to submit, or it's free to it's free to enter, or it's free if you win this, or it's free if you get this many people. There's always going to be a caveat.
Like if you worked at the
that.
festival, you might be able to like, it's like if you work at a theater, you might get a free movie. It's like that too. Like,
yeah, nothing is completely free. There's always going to be a caveat. There's always going to be a condition.
like one of your
so
friends,
in that sense,
I mean, like I don't know. There's some things like free, but like most of the time, yeah, it's like balance. Some things are free, but some things like they have to make money too, especially for film festivals and stuff.
Yeah, because most of them don't even like make anything, even after they charge and stuff. That's just to pay for actually the thing itself.
Running, yeah, it's usually already funded. Yeah, you have to be like the truth of the matter is you make your money on the big shows, and then like, or like even medium shows, and then like when you film school, and then like independent small stuff.
yeah,
like,
that's why we always need to go.
There's no big market, right? So they have no way to make the money back if it's like for a bunch of short films. Like where else are they going to get the money to run that?
That's why we always say when it comes to the indie scene, when you're starting out, when you're submitting, when you're putting your initial work out there, don't think that you're going to make money right away. Don't think that you're going to make everything back or any back at all, because then you're just going to frustrate yourself. Think of it as an investment. Think of it as growing your audience, growing your, like expanding your reach, getting your work out there. And I feel like it's a lot easier for you not to get burnt out super quickly and super easily when you go into it with that mindset.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so this next stuff comes from Indie Film Hustle. It's letter B in the syllabus. Top 5 film festival scams filmmakers need to be aware of. Short film entry fees are around $20 to $50 for the most part. So if they charge a lot higher than that for a short film entry, just beware, because that could be them just trying to get submission fees. If a festival has no sponsors, that's a red flag. Even small, legit festivals usually can get like local companies to sponsor them. Somebody who, if it's a local film festival, they might want local restaurants will sponsor them so that people are more aware of their restaurants, or they can bring their food and have a little cart set up, or a car, or whatever. And that way it's like more of a community thing. So if they don't have any sponsors at all, that's a huge red flag, because sponsors are one of the ways they get money to be able to do the festival in the first place. A closely named festival to a legit one usually would mean that it's not legit. So if we have a legit Los Angeles Film Festival, there may be a fake Angeles Film Festival or Los Angeles Short Film Festival. If that one could be legit, because sometimes they do have separated ones. Like I know there's a Toronto Short Film Festival, and there's a Toronto International Film Festival that also shows short films. So sometimes there are specifically short film festivals that are specifically for short films, and they're the same name as the main one, like Los Angeles Film Festival. But you want to look into it. You want to make sure that it's not the first time they've done it. You want to make sure that it's legit. And obviously, if it has like part of the city, but it doesn't have all of it, like if it just says Angeles Film Festival, I think he said that one was actually a real one that he ran into at one point. And he just stayed away from it because, it doesn't sound real. Why is it not Los Angeles? Why is it Angeles? Sounds like it's trying to mimic a different legit festival, so that you can submit to it thinking it's the Los Angeles Film Festival when really it's something different. So be aware of that. Pay attention to the naming and the website that you're actually on, because you might be thinking of a legitimate festival, but you actually go to a scam website.
If the website looks like crap too, that's another huge red flag, because it's like, there are a lot of copycat websites out there pretending to be that festival or that company, and they create like a copycat website, or even if it's not a big festival, but it's a regular a festival, and the website is really bad and really ugly looking and really like someone made it in 30 minutes using Squarespace or something. Like, I'm no
Yeah, and
offense to
plus it
Squarespace,
shows
but,
that, if they can't even make a website right, how are they gonna handle, even if they're legit? Like at that point, it's like if they can't handle a website, then how are they gonna handle the technicalities that go with showing films?
yeah, I'm not trying to offend Squarespace. That was just the first one that popped in my head that I know that anyone can use. So,
Yeah, just because they have a website doesn't make them legit. That's basically what the point
yeah,
is.
that's what I meant.
You always want to look at it and make sure that it is put together well. And I would say even if it's a legitimate film festival, hopefully they have their website put together well, because that means they know how to handle technology, or at least they put in enough effort and money into it to make it work properly. Also, just because a film festival has a name of a big city doesn't mean that it's legitimate. Be sure to look into it and see if it's been around for a while, if it has prestige, and just to look into its legitimacy entirely. It could be named after any big city in any part of America or another country. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's real and that it actually is held in that city. So look into it. You also want to check online reviews. Type the name of the festival and then type scam or complaints in Google or another search engine. And if there are tons of complaints and bad reviews about it, then that's a bad sign. If there are extra awards, that's a red flag. If there aren't any awards, that's a red flag. If the festival is trying to charge for additional screenings of your film, that's a red flag. You should pay the submission fee and they should handle however many screenings is going to happen. You shouldn't have to pay over and over again to have it screened 3 times or 4 times. If they want to show it multiple times, they should be the ones slotting it in there already and not charging you for that. You also want to be sure to see who is judging the films, if they are credible, their experiences, or if they're credible and experienced or not. If the festival doesn't have any info on the judges or how the films are judged, that's a red flag. Most of them will tell you who the judges are. And if they don't tell you who the judges are, because some of them actually do want to remain anonymous, especially if they're maybe a big filmmaker, they don't want to have everyone show up just because that filmmaker's there. Well, the festival would, but the filmmaker wouldn't. And so sometimes they can remain anonymous. So being anonymous doesn't automatically mean it's not legit, but it will then at least say how the films are going to be judged. What is the criteria? Do they watch it first and then judge? And how is it being judged? And it'll walk you through it on their website of how it's going to work. So if it doesn't have any information like that, that's a red flag. If there are no public screenings at the festival and only private screenings, that's a scam. They say the public screenings, that's what the festivals do. If it's just private screenings and you have to pay for it and everything, then that's most likely a scam. So does anyone have any questions, comments, or anything to add? Any experiences or things you've heard about film festival scams that may have happened? Or just anything to look out for if you have done it. Vish asked what letter D was. Honestly, I can't remember. I watched this stuff a few weeks ago. I'm actually like a few weeks ahead on the studies this year, or this semester anyway. But if you want to look into it, I think I've sent you the syllabus so you can check it out. They say there was a film festival in Vegas, catastrophe, and why smaller film festivals just aren't worth it.
I can try to find the specific link and send it to the WhatsApp group if you're in it. Or I
It's
can,
right here.
yeah, you can just send it to me and I'll send it in the WhatsApp group. Or
I'll
you
just
can
put
just
it in
send
the
it
chat right here if you guys want.
Yeah, or you can send it through, the chat.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure on all the details about it. It's basically, it was just showing like how one could be a scam, but it kind of repeated the information that I already got. So I think that's why I didn't add it into the notes. So that's usually how I do it with when I'm going over stuff. All right.
That makes sense. If something's already said, you don't need to say it twice. So that's
Yeah,
good.
exactly.
Unless like we're second date, third date, then you have to say it, sometimes 10 times.
All right, so the next stuff we're talking about is how to get on a streaming service. We basically already discussed most of this stuff already last semester and the semester before. So I'm just going to retouch on a few things. Streaming services don't take unsolicited pitches. You can't call them or click on a link on the site to pitch them an idea, or at least not the largest ones like Netflix. So they don't just let anybody just come in and pitch an idea. You have to go through certain channels to be able to do that. The only way to pitch to a streaming service is by having either an agent, a sales agent, a producer rep, an aggregator, or an entertainment lawyer that has internal connections with them. Or you could also get a distributor that has done business with them before. If you have any of those, you can get in touch with these big streaming services. But if you don't, and you're just an independent filmmaker, you're not going to be able to get in touch with them, and you're not going to be able to pitch them any ideas. The larger the streaming service like Netflix, HBO Max, Disney Plus, and all of those, obviously it's the harder it is to get a meeting with them, even with someone who is connected with them, especially if you are an unknown producer, director, filmmaker, or company. Also, if you're unknown and rather new, it's less likely you'll be able to get in contact and connected with an agent or someone who has those connections to the streaming services in the first place. It can happen, it is possible, and some people do it even being new and unknown. But those are the exception to the rule, so it's just good to be realistic about who you're going to be able to get in contact with to get you to get onto those bigger streaming services, if that's what you're going for. The vast majority of independent filmmakers need representation from others that have the connections to the streaming service companies. You need to also separate, we said this last, I think Monday, you need to separate the art from the business. We all want to believe our story is the best and it will get the deals to launch our careers, but filmmakers really need to think realistically about it. That's like winning a sweepstakes. It can happen, but it's more likely that you're going to enter the sweepstakes and you won't win. So developing a distribution plan and putting resources toward getting the project complete and getting in touch with someone who can maybe get you in the door should be the main focus, instead of not making a plan and just assuming the streaming service will love the idea and take it from an email that you pitched them or that you sent them with the pitch. These large streaming services want business from people they've worked with before, because those people will know all of the specifications and the technical requirements that are needed to get on their platform. And they'll have everything ready to go for the streamers upon delivery, which is why they don't work with new people anymore, because they don't want to get the wrong thing. And they put out the dates that movies and shows are coming. Next week, you go on Netflix, you go on some of the other big streaming services, they show you what is coming the following week. They show you what's coming later on, and they usually have a date attached to it. So they don't want to get it from somebody who might mess up the specifications or the technical requirements, and then that date has to be pushed back. And that's why they go through the people who've worked with them before, because they know the whole process and they know what's needed. The other way to get on streaming services is by having a film that gets a lot of buzz from large festivals and attracts a large audience already, which then will attract the distributors like Netflix and the other streaming service platforms to come to you. But, that's not an easy task to do. If it's popular enough, though, the streaming services will be interested in licensing the film. I actually have this thing, desktop documentaries. How does an independent filmmaker get their movie on Netflix? And they did have a few things that you could go about doing it. So they say option 1 is pitching to Netflix directly. Netflix states on their website that they do not accept unsolicited submissions. If you're an unknown producer without an established connection at Netflix, this rule applies to you. But they do know of several instances where producers have written directly to Netflix buyers and received a response. They say, however, unless you have a strong personal connection to a Netflix buyer and a solid reputation, you're likely needing to move on to the next options. So that's not usually available, but if you know somebody who works at Netflix who actually goes out and buys films or receives the pitches already, then that could be a good idea to try to contact them to see if they can get you in, because you already have an in at that point. They said, how about Netflix originals? That would be for Netflix originals, for pitching the idea to them. It'd be for the original. Now you can also pitch the actual finished film. So I think it would be the kind of option works for either one, I feel like. Option 2, they say find an agent.
Yeah,
agents
they're
are experts in
non-originals.
improving pitches, arranging meetings with buyers, and guiding the development process to greenlight. So they're talking about pitching the idea in this.
Yeah, their non-originals are pretty much things that already exist, and they either syndicated from other companies or bought from other production companies, services, that kind of thing. So if you're pitching them an idea, that would be considered an original, because they would be the production company that would be producing it and making it and all that stuff.
Yeah, and they say the leading agencies are WME or William Morris Endeavor, CAA, Creative Artist Agency, ICM, International Creative Management, and UTA, United Talent Agency. There are also smaller agencies and independents who enjoy access to Netflix buyers. The top agents provide their clients with regularly published notes on what networks and platforms want. And these can be really helpful reality checks for your pitch. So finding the
Vish
agent.
asked if they give them money. I mean, from what I've heard, yeah, Netflix is the ones that invest in the productions.
So for a Netflix original, what it is somebody has an idea, they usually bring it to a distributor that's worked with Netflix, or they bring it to the buyers at Netflix through some channel, like an agent, sales agent, who set up a meeting with Netflix executives if they feel like it's a good idea and everything. And Netflix says, okay, sure, we like the idea, let's hear it. And then, you have a sit down with them, you pitch your idea, and then they decide if they are going to fund it or not. If they fund it, they say it has to be a Netflix original. You can't post it anywhere else. We own the rights to it after you make it. It's basically like a distributor giving you all the money up front to make your film, but then it belongs to them. So that's how Netflix originals work. Some of them, Netflix originals, they buy the exclusive rights so that they're the only ones who can show it. So it could be something that was on an old channel, or it could be something that like a different network gave up, and then they buy the rights to it, and then they brand it as an original and either continue the seasons, or they're just like, we're the only place that you can watch this at, so it's a Netflix original. So
sometimes it's considered a Netflix original just because Netflix owns the right to it in that particular country. Like I've seen cases where the show does not originally air on Netflix. It's from another production company, another channel. But because there isn't that channel in that country, or there is a channel, but they don't own the rights to that show in that country, then Netflix will buy it, and it will be considered a Netflix original in that country. Like I've seen shows that, in the UK and Brazil and Canada are in other channels, and in the US are considered Netflix originals, or vice versa. So there's
because
that
they're
too.
the only ones who own the rights to show it in that region and stuff like that. So
Yeah, so
there are a few ways to go about getting a Netflix original, but typically if you have a film already made, they aren't going to buy it as an original. They're just going to
tend to buy
license it from
shows
you.
more than,
But
yeah.
it really depends on how exclusive they want to get it. They'll give you a better deal, or they should give you a better deal if they are trying to have exclusive rights, which means that they brand it as a Netflix original, because it's
Or it
not gonna be
releases on
anywhere else.
Netflix first. That's another thing I've heard of as well. Like it's in other platforms, but it releases on Netflix first.
Right, but then it's not a Netflix original if that's the case, right?
Yeah, but I'm just saying like in deals and stuff.
Yeah,
There's
but I'm
also
just
the
saying for Netflix
cases.
originals in general, like they typically are either going to be something, the idea you gave, you pitched an idea, and they, through reputable channels, like Vish was saying, you got somebody who knows Netflix and they liked your idea and they said, you know what, I'll vouch for you, kid. And they give you the chance, and you do a pitch with Netflix, or they do a pitch with Netflix, like a communication email and stuff like that, or a call, get you an appointment. And then you go and you do a pitch with hopefully with your agent, and they either decide if they want to fund it or not. And if they do want to fund it, Netflix original.
There's also the rare case of if they, for example, if a show has been canceled, they might like, oh, Netflix really liked it, and you can pitch to them your idea for the next season, and Netflix decides if they want to buy it or not. I believe that's what happened with Lucifer.
I believe that's what happened with the show You as well.
Was
I think
it
You
canceled?
belonged to like Stars or something like that, and then they canceled it after 1 or 2 seasons.
Did they
and then
cancel
Netflix
it? I
picked
thought they
up.
just owned the syndication for it.
They were the ones producing it, and then they just canceled it, or they weren't going to produce the next season, so Netflix took it over and made it an original.
Well, I know with the show Lucifer, they had like 2 or 3 seasons. I don't remember. But it was canceled and it was on Fox, I believe. And then there was such an outpour when it got canceled on Twitter, and everyone's like, hey, buy the show. And they were able to pitch their next season to Netflix, and Netflix gave them 2 more seasons. Was it 2? I think it was 2.
That's cool. All right, option number 3 is working with a distributor. Distributors meet regularly with Netflix buyers, pitching a portfolio that ranges from their catalog of already completed programs to productions that are underway but require finishing funds, and others that are unfunded proposals. They're just the pitch, the development idea. Distributors are always on the lookout for exciting new projects that can make great partners. Free B2B business to business e-newsletters like Real Screen and C21 are great sources of information about the activities of distributors and to understand how distributors operate, including information on their standard deal terms. Search this thing. So you can go on this website that's in the syllabus and you can look more into that. Basically, we've already gone over that, what the stuff is about distributors, but you want to make sure that if you are trying to get on Netflix, you have to get somebody, you have to get a distributor to want you that has done business with Netflix, because otherwise Netflix doesn't care. Even if it's a pretty good distributor, they don't all get work with Netflix. So that's something to keep in mind depending on what you want to do. I also say you can marry up with an A-list producer. So if you have a big name producer or director, I would say even whatever crew or cast, that's a good way to get Netflix. Netflix loves celebrities. The projects are studied with A-lister Hollywood actors and Oscar or Sundance winning documentary producers. And so, if you're able to, that's a great way to be able to get your project more reputable and get big streaming services. We're talking about Netflix on here, but it applies to all the big ones. Amazon, HBO Max, Paramount, all these other big ones. So you can also hire a top attorney. Specialist attorneys like entertainment lawyers are involved over and over again with Netflix documentary projects. They often work. So this is talking specifically about documentaries, but it applies to narrative projects as well. And it's, like I said, it's specifically for Netflix, but it applies to most of the other major streaming services. They all do this now because they have enough content. They have enough people trying to get on their platforms that they don't need to go out and get people that are new. They can get whatever they want at this point. Option number 6, go global. Your film may appeal to a Netflix executive who specializes in buying from markets outside of the US. Netflix operates close to 200 territories. What's more, the company is coming under increasing pressure from politicians and regulators to buy locally produced and appealing content. You may find a fit with a regional Netflix buyer or one of the preferred production companies in the regions. So if you're doing international, you might be able to get on Netflix in another country, and then they can bring it into the US as well at that point because it's already on their platform. If they decide to do that, which could be easier. You'll still need somebody, international distribution somehow. So you'll still need a distributor that can do that. You can't just internationally distribute on your own, but that is another option if you're going for Netflix. In short, there's no silver bullet for making the killer pitch to Netflix, though hopefully these suggestions will help lay out a credible path to submit your great project to Netflix. The main point of this whole thing is just saying, there are ways. They say, there are some people who can pitch directly to Netflix, but it's usually only if they have an in, if they know somebody that works at Netflix and they have an actual relationship with them, like a friendship or a romantic relationship, whatever the case may be. If they already know somebody that works at Netflix, it's a lot easier for those people to directly get in contact with them, because they have someone on the inside vouching for them. Whereas everybody else who doesn't have that, you can't really directly contact Netflix. It's pretty much impossible. You can try, but most of the time, 99% of the time, it's a waste of time. All right, and then Netflix even has, if you go on Netflix's site, if you go to, I think it's Partner Help, they actually have a lot of details about what they allow, what they don't allow, how you submit to them and everything like that, which you can go over and you can read and really get an in-depth feel of what needs to be done to get on something. And Netflix, like I said, even though this is from Netflix, this is how, from my understanding, this is how all of the other major platforms work. They do basically the same stuff that Netflix does. Netflix just tries to help explain it to everybody of what needs to be done. They say, how our ideas are pitched to Netflix. If you have an idea for a show, film, game, or other project, you may be curious how to get it on Netflix. First and foremost, thank you for your interest in Netflix content. Unfortunately, we cannot and do not accept or review any materials, whether manuscripts, treatments, scripts, drawings, ideas, pictures, etc., that we do not specifically request. Pitching an idea to Netflix. If you have an idea, a game, a script, screenplay, or production already in development that you'd like to pitch to Netflix, you must work through a licensed agent, producer, attorney, manager, or industry executive, as appropriate, who already has a relationship with Netflix, who's already worked with them before. They are unable to share references for those resources. So they're not giving out those names of everyone either. You have to actually go look it up. But you can find the people who have distributed to Netflix by looking at Netflix movies and going to the credits and seeing who the distributor is or who the agents were and other things like that. So you can find it. If you do not have any of these resources available, Netflix will be unable to accept your unsolicited submissions. And this is directly from Netflix. The other site said, they say that, sometimes they don't mean it if you have connections on the inside, but for the most part, they mean it. They said, was it Brazilian novellas going like that across the world? What?
Actually, there's a lot of Brazilian novellas that are syndicated by Portuguese channels here in the US, or there was this big Brazilian novella that was set in India, and it's gorgeous. It's one of my favorites, one of my dad's favorites. It's called Caminho das Índias, and it was so big that it actually got syndication in India. So there are channels that do buy it, and they will show on other channels because of that. I know that a lot of Cartoon Network shows would show on Boomerang here in the US. I mean, here like in Brazil, the Cartoon Network shows would show on Boomerang in Brazil. And I thought Boomerang was just a Brazilian channel until I was like, oh, there is a Boomerang here in the US, but it doesn't show a lot of the shows that Boomerang showed when I was a teenager. All of the MTV shows would show on Boomerang. A bunch of Cartoon Network shows would show on Boomerang. A bunch of ABC shows. Because that's who owned the syndication there.
That's interesting. All right, so then the other thing they say on their website, Netflix source of ideas to create or buy content. Netflix uses all of the following methods to find new content to buy or create. They employ a team of creative executives and buyers who receive pitches for content through their channels that they named up here. All these people, they send in the pitches, and those are the ones they actually look at.
To Vicious comment on Korea, Netflix actually owns the syndication of a lot of Korean dramas in Brazil because it's so huge in Brazil right now. There's this huge resurgence of K-dramas. Of course, I discovered it first in middle school before anybody, but who cares? But now it's huge, and Netflix bought the rights to a bunch of Korean dramas.
Netflix has deep relationships with the creative community and talent agencies who propose ideas for projects as well. That would probably be falling under the people who actually know people who work there, saying, oh yeah, they're part of the creative community. Her boyfriend or her husband or his wife or his girlfriend or his friend or his brother. And so, that they have deep relationships in that way. Talent agencies, they know people and stuff like that. And they know maybe some projects and they've worked with them before. So that could be people who propose ideas for projects. Netflix may purchase finished works at film festivals or other established venues. I've heard of them doing this, but they do it more rarely. If you don't, usually you have to pitch it to them after you're at a festival. They don't come to you at the festival, but it depends. Sometimes they do, it just depends. But I've heard that one's a little more rare. And Netflix may generate an idea internally and hire creatives to develop those ideas further. So the other thing they do, they might have people who brainstorm an idea, and then they have the production companies and the people they've worked with before, they go, hey, can you make this? So sometimes they give the idea out to somebody to create for them. And that would also be a Netflix original. But those are the ways that they can go ahead and get ideas and stuff like that. And they don't really just get it from any independent that has an idea and wants to email them. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or anything about getting into the major streaming services? I would say even for the smaller ones, from what I've heard, it's like you have to either have an aggregator or you have to have a distributor that knows those platforms and can get you onto them. So even like the free ones that use ads, stuff like that, you can't just email them and get in contact with them. Even though they're a smaller platform, they still have a lot of the same requirements that the major ones do. All right, last two things we're talking about is forced narratives and textless elements. These are two things that if you have a distribution deal, these are some of the deliverables that you might need. This stuff comes from voxtab.com. It's letter A in the syllabus, and it's underneath forced narrative. It's this website. Forced narratives are another possible deliverable you'll need to deliver to a distributor in a distribution deal. They are time synchronized text files where subtitles won't be removed even if the person turns subtitles off. They are also placed so that they don't overlap with the normal subtitles if subtitles are turned on. Forced narrative subtitles are used occasionally when there are foreign dialogue segments where the audience may not speak the second language. So they automatically put on subtitles for it so you can understand what they're saying if the film wants you to understand. And then they can read along with what they're saying in the other language. Label translations are also forced narrative subtitles when the title is hard-coded into the video. So for the language thing, it could be they're saying something, buenos dias, good morning. So that is going to be hard-coded into the picture, good morning, because if you don't speak Spanish, you're not going to know what they're saying, or whatever the language may be. And then like label translations, like New York, but then you also have a translated version in another language, or like in the picture, Boston, Massachusetts. You might have it in Chinese, Japanese, whatever language you are whatever country it's distributed in. They need to put a translation of it, which would be these forced narrative subtitles.
The translation also varies from language, from like different countries will have different translations. I've seen a few examples of them showing like how words will be translated differently when one company or one country is translating them to another country that's translating them, because they have different companies doing the translations. We had an issue with not an issue, but I remember hearing about, there was this huge Brazilian soap opera that we did that was about King David, because there's a channel there that does like a bunch of biblical soap operas. And a lot of the translation, because it was older speech in some parts, and there are direct Bible verses, and there are different ways of different translations of the Bible, depending on the country that it was translated in, or the different distributor. They even had it all in English, but from different companies and different channels, and they were translated slightly different when it came to like him singing the Psalms and stuff like that.
Gotcha. Yeah, so what these forced narratives would do is just show like where the new language needs to be so that it can be translated to whatever. So if there's a hard baked in title like Boston, Massachusetts for English speaking people, then you need to have that timestamped. Where does that happen? So that they know when they're distributing it to another language, which parts of the movie need to have a translation occur on screen. Ooh. And then it's translated into, I believe this is Chinese. And it has to be placed somewhere else. They can't place it in the same spot because then it'd be overlapping and nobody could read it. So it also has to have where the location of the stuff is and the timestamp of it, so that they know there's something there and it's on that part of the screen. So we need to put it, up or over, whatever.
Another issue that you might run into as far as title with translations, a lot of, I don't know about other countries, but in Brazil this happens a lot and it's very annoying. A lot of movies that have one title here will have a completely different title there that has nothing to do, like either nothing to do with the story or is very confusing and weird. I don't think they do it as much anymore because it's a lot more centralized communication and stuff, but it still happens. And there will be a really weird name. I've run into this issue in trying to find the names of movies that, I like that movie, what's it called, when I lived there, even when I lived here, and it'll have a completely different name. So that's another thing that you might have to expect, be able to have to expect, is that your movie might have a completely different name in another country, whether it's because they already have a movie with that name or because the translation doesn't really make sense. If it's like what do you call it? Trocadilho. When it's two words that a play on words, I guess is what it would call. When you have a play on words, it wouldn't really translate well. So that's another thing to think about when making your title. Homonym? I don't know. When there are words that like have a double meaning. That sound the
same but are different?
No. When there's like an expression, for example, like an expression or a play on words where you will have like a shot at love, let's say, and it's about alcohol. The same little meaning, because shot glass, it won't really, like, they won't pick up on that because it doesn't translate the same, you know?
Yeah. So with the forced narrative stuff, like as someone who's trying to deliver it to a distributor, the distributor will handle the name of the title and all of that. You have to deliver to them the timestamp and the placement of these different things that need to be translated. They handle the translation and they may mess it up. And they may have to change the title of the movie and all that, but that isn't part of forced narratives.
I don't know, people. English. I don't know all of English idioms. I don't know if that's what it's called. I haven't been to school in a while. But yeah, it's that. I just meant to say it because it is something that you expect when you're, for example, working with a distributor and they're going to distribute your movie, and you're trying to, let's say, you know, people in another country, and you're trying to get them to, hey, watch my movie. This is what it's called. Sometimes you might have to check with the distributor, hey, what's it called in this country, or see if they changed it, because that is a real possibility.
Right.
Yeah.
But for forced narratives, it's just finding out all the elements that need to be translated, because sometimes you have a shot of somebody's phone and they're texting. And if you guys have watched any movies in another language, you'll see that they translate it to English. Or if you've been in another country and you're watching an English movie, then they're going to translate whatever's being said in the text on screen in a different part of the screen so that you can keep up as you would if you were speaking the native language of whatever the film is. So any text as a visual element, like signs, book titles, text messages on the phone, those are all going to need forced narrative subtitles to have what is spoken in another language readable for foreign audiences.
Unless if it's a sign that's in prominence or important, because there are cases where you're around New York City, for example, they're not going to translate every single sign. Only the ones.
If it has something to do with the story, or if it's something maybe the character will look at, you know, that will be something that's more important. And the distributor will tell you what is needed, what's not. So always ask your distributor if you are unsure. If you get to a part where you're like, oh, do they need to know? Do they need to see stop? You know, maybe the stop sign's important because they're getting ready to get in the crash.
And more often
maybe it's not important because it's off in the distance and it's a red sign, so it's kind of like, okay, you know, you can kind of understand what it is.
And more often than not, they will not actually like go and edit the sign to make it in that language. They will most likely either put it in subtitles, or they will have a voiceover of someone reading it and in the language and translating it.
It'll be something like this, where they won't put it over the top. They will put it in a different area, like right below it or above it, usually, if there's room, so that whatever language it's in, they can keep up. If characters communicate with sign language or speak another language made up, like Elvish in Lord of the Rings, or an alien language or something like that, those are going to be forced narrative parts as well.
There are also different kinds of sign language in different languages, like there's
which
American
is why they would have
language.
A translation for forced narrative, because sign language isn't universal.
There's different types of sign language for different countries. Yeah.
And either way, whenever there's sign language, if the audience is supposed to understand what they're saying, they'll put it in subtitles for like English speaking countries, or, you know, and then the other country will also have the same thing, because not everyone's going to speak sign language and they're not going to understand. If they're not meant to understand, then it doesn't matter, because there won't be any forced narrative there. Forced narrative just means stuff that's not going to come off the screen. So they need to add another language dubbing, or another language transcription somewhere on the screen to help that audience keep up. Forced narrative usually requires the original language subtitles to not appear in the film, but that isn't always the case, and your distributor will let you know which is needed. Sometimes a film will have a language that the audience is not meant to understand or follow along with. With that, the burned in text may be speaking German, so that way you don't actually know what they're saying in German. When the film goes to Germany, the language of the foreign speaker in the film may be changed to another language so that the German audience gets the same feeling of not understanding what that foreign speaker is saying. They might switch it and have him speak in English and the other speaker speak in German, because then it would have the same feeling for them. Some films don't do that, but most will try to do something like that so they keep the audience, they can feel the same way. If you're supposed to be in the dark and not understand what the person's saying, a film will usually try to convey that by changing the language of the person speaking when it goes to other countries, even if they spoke the original foreign language. Like I said, like German was my example. But that's what forced narratives are. They're just things that are already going to be on there. They're like, you see them a lot with other languages anytime. The newest season of Stranger Things, when they're in Russia, you can see the Russian subtitles, or there's forced narrative subtitles in English because they're speaking Russian. And so we're not gonna be able to understand what they're saying. And so when it goes to other languages, those are the parts they need to translate as well to have those forced narratives on, so they know these are baked in subtitles.
I was also going to ask, this is more of like a little tidbit or anything. Has anyone ever, when I used to watch shows or movies, I still do this sometimes, and they're speaking in another language and they're not letting us in on what they're talking about, I always wonder, like, are they saying that right? Do they have an actual speaker saying, like an actual native speaker saying the dialogue? Does the dialogue make sense? Because more often than not, I have seen cases where they will have someone speaking in a different language in the background and we're not supposed to understand. And then either I'll know it and I'll see it, or other people will see it and point out the dialogue in this sucks. We don't really talk like this. Or the person that's speaking has like a really crappy accent. Like we were watching Family Guy a while back, and he has like these two Portuguese like men from Portugal, and I was like, man, these are not Portuguese speakers, because they're trying to do a Portuguese accent and it's so crappy. And he was like, really? And I was like, yeah, they're definitely not native speakers. And even the way that they're talking in Portuguese is not, like, even though Portuguese from Portugal is a little different than ours, it sounds clunky. The dialogue doesn't sound like real words. It sounds like they know the language and they're speaking it, but not perfectly, like a native speaker would. So that is, like, I wonder if anyone else has ever had that. That is something that I will always wonder when I'm watching movies and they're speaking the other language. While I was watching Stranger Things, I was like, I wonder if this is like really good Russian or if this is really crap Russian, and I just don't know. So that's always something that, I don't know, I'm an overthinker, so maybe no one else thinks this, but that's always something that I wonder.
That's why it's the same thing. Like,
yeah,
you have French, and then you have Creole. So Creole is like slang. So like if you speak Haitian, like you go to Haiti, more people speak French, like in school, and English. But people out, in the street, it's a certain language that it's different. They're different Creole too. Like he could be in Florida and speak a different type of Creole from some, depending on where your family's from. And it's weird because it's different. It's a different dialect.
Yeah, it's like Spanish is not the same across, like, if you go to Spain, Spanish, and then Mexican Spanish, it's like, whoa, it's very different.
Yeah, I learned Colombian Spanish, but I cannot tell you, like, there's a lot of Spanish speakers that I will not understand. And that's why I never say like, oh yeah, I speak Spanish. No, I know some Spanish. I don't speak Spanish. But yeah, that's just something that I think about a lot. Because
people in New Orleans speak it different, Creole.
Yeah. What, Vish? Sorry?
Huh?
Oh, yes. Vish was trying to say something.
Yeah, I was just mentioning close to the French speaking, right? Even in France, the southern France people speak different than the northern French people.
Mm.
No,
And,
yeah, New
Yeah, and like,
Zealanders and
isn't in
Australians.
India they have like a ton of different languages if you go like a few miles different?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like another whole
They'll
language,
have
like,
Hindu
or just
and
like
they'll
a
have
very like
Punjabi and then they'll have
some similar words, but the majority are kind of just like a different thing. It's like, holy,
there are 23 different languages in each.
23.
Yeah,
yeah, and it's crazy.
I didn't
know
Yes,
it was
it's all
23.
so like it's compact, but you
it's
go a
like
few miles one way, and it's like another language.
Let him
each
finish,
state
poor
has
man.
each state has its own language,
Mm-hmm.
and those are like language itself is different. I mean, there is no resemblance of one language to another language, period.
Goodness, how do you
Yeah.
communicate?
So whenever like a
Yeah.
film goes to India, they have to translate it 20. You said 23 or 27?
Yeah, 23.
If they're showing it all over the place, they're gonna do it 23 different dubbings. So
Oh
yeah.
my.
That's why whenever there's an international distribution,
Yeah.
the filmmaker in whatever country you're in, and you're internationally distributing it somewhere else, there's so many companies it has to go through and so many processes. That's why you don't see as much money come in from those deals, because
I have
at
a
the
friend.
end of it, it's a lot smaller of a percentage, but there's so much wider of a scope that the majority of movies will make more money because, in the entire world instead of one country.
Yeah, sorry, Vish.
Yeah, I know, somebody who does this, what do they call, dubbing, or I don't know, voiceover kind of thing. He does that
dubbing.
for a living. Yeah, he does that for a living. So he does that for all the languages going back and forth. If you go overseas, you'll find that a lot of English movies are dubbed in the regional languages. Like if you go to China, they'll be in Chinese, and if
My
you
goodness.
go to Korea,
That poor man's brain.
yeah, it's so strange that you will, after 15 minutes, you forget that you're watching it.
No, I know two and a half. I know
Yeah.
2.5 languages, and my brain will just be mush sometimes. Like my brother lives with us right now, and sometimes I'll be talking to him in Portuguese, in the point where I'll just go up to Coda and I will have to stop myself because I'm about to speak to him in Portuguese, or I'm about to say something in Portuguese, or vice versa. And I'll just be like, wait, what? I can't imagine having more than like 2 is hard for me. And I forget words and I'm like, crap, how do you say that thing again? Or I mix them up. I can't imagine like having that be my job and I have to switch between multiple languages. Like, how does your brain function, my guy?
No, but that's where the world is going. Your movie may end up in some country where the language is completely different, but it'll be spoken, it'll be dubbed in that language, and they'll be able to understand everything that is going on in the movie.
Right.
Period. Right.
That's awesome. That really is.
Yeah.
Because subtitles are crap. Okay. I don't know.
That was the other thing I was going to say. Like, yeah, in some countries, they just go, all right, we're going to do one, whatever the majority language is in this country, we'll do that. But for the rest of you guys, you get subtitles.
Yeah, but going back to that question, right? So there is language issue, and then there is another issue, which is, as was mentioned, that if you go to southern, states, right, in US, it's amazing that their dialect or their language is completely, not language, I would say, just the accent is completely different.
Mhm.
And I know I came across a lady who was, in LA, and she was from New Orleans, right, Louisiana area.
Mhm.
And she would switch between the Los Angeles English and the southern Louisiana English. Completely different.
Oh, that is totally a thing. Like, I'm from Rio, but I grew up hearing all types of Portuguese and all types of whatever. My brother will make fun of me sometimes because I'll speak in like a more southern accent, our southern accent, which is very like the Portuguese. Por que tu tá aí? Da, 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 like that. And then he'll just be like, yeah, tu vai? And he'll just be like making fun of me. And I'll be like, well, what the heck? Because it's hard because you're living all over the place and you get that accent. I'm trying to be really like intentional about not getting a southern accent, nothing against it, but I'm just trying really hard to
Like if the story is based on let's say Louisiana, right, or some southern states, and if you're trying to project a character based on that, for a person who is overseas, it doesn't really matter. But for a person who is knowledgeable about the Southern culture, right, for him, it'll appear really weird saying that, okay, this doesn't really reflect the culture nor the accent, right? So he may feel completely out of place. So it's like a different perspective, I would think.
No, yeah, I think that was the feeling I had when I watched that Fast and Furious movie that took place in Brazil. I was like, oh my God. But I feel like, I don't know, it's just one of those things that I always wondered when I was little and I didn't know anything about films, and I would watch people speak other languages. And then as I started watching more international films, like how I would watch Korean dramas and there would be an American, but he would obviously be a Korean speaking, pretending to be an American because he would have like a very thick accent. Or same thing with Portuguese, like pretending to be a Portuguese person, but obviously an American or whatever. And I always wondered, I can't help but wonder, I wonder when, every time that happens in a film, I wonder, are they speaking like good of that language? Are they speaking it correctly? Does the dialogue make sense when you're writing multiple dialogues in multiple languages? There's going to be translation issues because the way that words are in one language are different than another. And yeah, like I can only imagine a place like India that's 23, and now, thank goodness, like we're getting to a place where it's more accessible. But back in the day when it used to be like, 3-4 languages and that's it. That's all we got.
Yeah.
Interesting.
All right. So moving on from that, we're talking about textless elements. And those kind of go hand in hand with forced narratives. And sometimes you'll be required to have both. Sometimes it's just one or the other. Like I said, forced narratives are just anything that if you turn subtitles off, those subtitles or those words are still going to appear on screen, like a title. Lord of the Rings has the title of the movie appear, and that is a forced narrative. Or it could be a textless element where they don't include it. That way it can be put in the same exact spot, but just in another language. So a forced narrative is keeping the original language there and then having the other language appear somewhere else on screen in a translated version. So that could be the language when people are talking in another language in the movie, and it's a foreign language for the original audience, the original country of origin. Then when it goes to another country and they're keeping that dialogue on screen, that's a forced narrative because now they have to place the new foreign language on a different part of the screen to translate it. Or, the title or a text message or a sign or something like that they're not going to completely kick off. So forced narratives for signs and things that are important to the story that are shown in camera, like actually in the frame, text messages and things like that, those are always going to be forced narratives.
Like I said, a way around that a lot of, well, I know that a few countries do. I don't know if it's like every movie or if it depends on the production company, but they also say it, like they will have a voiceover person that will just read over the word or the sentence or the letter or whatever, and they will read it during the movie, kind of like a voiceover situation.
Either way.
No, I know.
Either way, as a filmmaker delivering it to a distributor, they are going to require, it's going to use the same document. Whatever the end product becomes, whether they use a voiceover, translation, or something like that, the forced narrative form that you give to the distributor is going to be the same, and that's what the other countries are going to base those things off of. When do we need to have that speaker read out the thing, or when do we need to put a different language in there? So the forced narrative for us as filmmakers is the same, regardless of the final output. That'll be done by the international distributor, whoever's handling it, whatever they want to save money or whatever way they want to go about doing it. So forced narratives are that stuff that's on in screen and camera, text messages, signs that are important, whatever appears on screen that isn't done in post-production. That will always be a forced narrative moment so that it can be translated. The textless elements come in whenever it doesn't have to be on screen. Stuff like the city, Boston, Massachusetts, that doesn't have to appear on screen. That was added in post-production. So that can be taken out. And a textless element means wherever that stuff appears, we're going to take it out so that the new language can be put in. And it'll be the same shot, just without the text. So
there I have a question.
Element. Yeah.
When you're doing that, right? Do you have to make it, like, let's say, do you have to make it with the fact that you're going to distribute it internationally in mind, so that you can make a text that's easy to cut out and cut back in without looking like it was cut out and cut back in the image, so that it doesn't look sloppy?
If you're going to add text to it, you're either going to have this shot in mind from the beginning, because you know you're going to have the title appear here, or you're going to have the name of the person, or whatever kind of thing you're putting there. You are either going to have it in mind before you shoot the film anyway, or you're going to add it in post-production. Either case, it'll be able to be removed for the other language to put it in its place.
Makes sense. I was just thinking about that.
Gotcha.
Right. I think you kind of covered that in the deliverables, right? They kind of, when you go into international distribution, you don't send the, what is that, subtitle track or something, the dialogue track.
Oh yeah, right. The dialogue gets taken out, so it's just music and effects.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just basically the same stuff. It's just those different elements that all compile together that show one language, or the audible parts of that language, so that they can be changed if they want to, or they can be subtitled over. So all of these things are very similar, which is why once you get one down, it's easier to do the next ones. But it depends on your distributor how much of these they're going to require, and like all of these different things. Most of these are pretty universal if you're trying for any kind of international distribution, just because they want to be able to translate it if they choose to, or like Priscilla said, if they want to do the audible parts instead, they want to be able to choose that and not have something taken up the screen. So a textless element is very similar to a forced narrative. You'll just be taking out the way the end product is very similar. The only thing that's different is a forced narrative. It would keep this wording on screen, and it would have a translation either underneath or above it, while a textless element is the same shot without that text there, so that they can put the language either in the same spot or wherever they want on screen.
So I don't know if you know this or not, but
international.
Let's say that the person that's going to read out loud what's on the text message on screen, like the little bubble, is the actor. So would that document be added to the actor's script? Would it be sent to the actor? Like, would they have to change the script in the dubbing process to add that? I would assume, or
if what was, say it again?
If the thing appearing on screen, let's say they're like bubble text messages, if the voice that's going to read out those text messages are of the actors in that scene, like two actors having a text message, and the bubble voices are their voices.
Well, that would just be in the dialogue things. That would be taken out, and it's either subtitled or dubbed in another language.
But would it be on their script, on the translated script? Would it be like, read out this?
Yeah, whatever is spoken, it would be in the you would have a different form. What was the one? There was one of the things we learned about, but that was a deliverable that is going over every single piece of audio dialogue that's spoken so that you can take it out. Music and effects track does that. It takes out all the stuff.
Yeah, because that one wouldn't be spoken. It would be added on to it later because it's a written text. And so they're going to read it out loud in the translation, but they don't do that in the actual original film.
So the way what I heard is that when you have in the script, right, they want you to write the dialogue as it is in English, and then under parentheses you would go spoken in Spanish, something like that. So, or so the person who is actually doing dubbing, he could do it in any language, without really being specific to Spanish. So that's more of a writing thing in the script. They advise you not to really do, if the person is speaking in Spanish, not to do the Spanish dialogue in there.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but I think basically it's like in English you don't need the dialogue. It just has on the screen, it appears, and then the text, right? But if you're dubbing it, and you'd have to instead of translating it with subtitles or translating the words, you would have the voice of the actors say what's written on the screen. So that would be added to the script, kind of like a parenthetical, or would it be like a document, like you said, Cody?
Again, that would be up to the distributor. It would be these same forms that you deliver to them. And
okay, that's what I was wondering.
Depending on the international distributor, if they don't want to put, they'll just leave it as a textless element because they don't care to put it, and they'll just have the actor read it out, the new actor in the new language.
Okay,
then
that's what I was wondering.
Their decision at that point.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, if it's the same document or if it's just added to the script during the distribution process and that kind of thing.
Right, because as a filmmaker, if I'm trying to distribute internationally, I'm not writing the script in these other languages because I don't know them. So that would be whoever's translating it, which is why you have to have all these forms. They have to be very specific to the timestamps and when this stuff happens, so that they can go in and be like deciding what they want to do with it.
Okay. Hopefully it made sense. I'm sorry if it was redundant, oh, we already learned this. It was just something very specific, and I wasn't sure if the same thing applied or not. That's why I asked.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
All right, so I kind of already explained this, but this comes from Blackwater Digital. So they are scenes and shots that had or would have had baked in text and subtitles, but you just give them a new version that doesn't have any of the text in them. So it's just the visuals of the film or the show. Anything added in post-production that added subtitles or text labels are removed to make separate textless versions. And you have to send the distributor both versions so that they have the original for local distribution and they have the textless version for international distribution if they request it. Then instead of having both the original language and the foreign language subtitles on screen at once, which would be done more like with forced narratives where they have both, with textless elements, they just have the new foreign language in place where the original one was. A distributor may want this instead of just forced narrative subtitles, but often they will want both. That way they like to have as many options as possible, and they like to give the international distributors that they're working with as many options as possible, so they can choose if they want to do subtitles or if they want to translate it and put it below it, or if they want to have no other language on screen except for their own, or if they want to do it audibly, like Priscilla was saying. They want to give those options to the people, so that way there's not just, oh, sorry, there's always going to be this English text on here because it was made in an English speaking country. they want to have the option to say, if you want it, you also have the version without the English if you don't want to have that on screen. And usually the forced narratives will be used in countries that have like 2 or 3 main languages, with one of them being the original language. So in a country that has English as one of its main languages, but it also has another language as its main language, they might do forced narratives so they have both on screen. So no matter what the person speaks in that country, they can follow along. And other countries that are more specific to whatever language they're using and don't speak the original language of the film, those will usually use the textless elements to kick out that language entirely, because it just takes up more screen space and it doesn't look as nice. Examples of textless shots and elements include main titles and credits. So like the job titles and things like that, they'll be taken out and there'll just be a spot. If you just have a crawl of credits over black and it's just white text, you basically just take out all the titles and the credits and the thanks and leave the names of the stuff, but everything else is taken out. That way they can add it in the other language, the director. And if it's said, whatever, however you say director and all these other languages, they want to put it in their own language in the credits. And so that's one of them. Opening credits or in titles and credits, both of the same thing. Those are textless elements that they want to have usually, where they have the version without the English words in there, just the names of the people. Forced narratives can be an example of textless shots with the burnt-in subtitles. Lower thirds, if that appears, if you're doing a documentary, those appear all over the place, and those are usually journalists. You want that not to be there, so they can add the person's name and they can add the job in their language. Textless elements are not usually required for text over solid white or solid black backgrounds. Forced narratives can usually be used for those. So if the screen goes black and says the next day, they don't usually require a textless element of that. They let that be just a forced narrative. But if it's something on screen that has a visual, like this middle picture, they usually want it as a textless element so that there's more, you can see more in the picture and it doesn't get taken up by, like I said, 2 different translations on top of each other, because then you can't really see what's underneath as well. Textless elements, you may be asked for either that, or they're also known as clean covers, textless backgrounds, textless plates, and textless material. Netflix shows what textless elements are for their guide, because they like to distribute their stuff on their platform internationally when they get the rights to it. And they tell you everything of what they would be: opening credits and general text, end credits, main titles, production logos, time and location stamps, any lower thirds, text embedded in graphic elements or animated, text and visual effects compositions or animation, transitional diegetic text. I actually don't know what that is. Oh, okay. I see. It's like anything live action without visual effects that's actually on there, like a greeting card or something like that.
Can you go
What?
back? Can you just slide up for a second?
Yeah.
So I can see all the options again. I just wanted you.
Oh, yeah.
Production, I guess. 1 second.
Brands, any brands on there, they might be a different brand name. I know, like Nestle, if you go to a different country, it's called something else in a different language. Infographics, full screen graphics and maps, graphic animated text over picture. All of these things, if you are trying to deliver to Netflix, or if you're trying to deliver to a distributor who's going to deliver to Netflix, they're going to require you to use these. And even if you're not delivering to Netflix or one of these other major streaming services, your distributor is usually going to ask you to do textless elements or whatever the other names, clean covers, Textless backgrounds. And you have to look through your film and make sure that any of these, you give a version that doesn't have the text. And then they will look over it, overview it, and make sure you gave them every single option so that they have the entire film, both versions, with the Textless parts and with the native language baked in. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or anything to add about either forced narratives or textless elements? Again, I'm going to say this is why distribution costs money, even if you're getting a deal. If you get a deal and you're going to make some money and you're going to break even on your, maybe you're not going to make money, but maybe you're going to break even on your film. You still might not break even because you have to do all this stuff, or you have to pay somebody who knows what they're doing for some of the stuff like quality control checks and things like that, to do all this stuff that's needed upon delivery to a distributor. So you have to try to keep that in your budget from the beginning. This stuff costs money to do. If you don't know what you're doing, you're going to have to hire somebody to do it, and that costs money. Some of the stuff can't even be done if you know what you're doing, because they require a lab or another company to do it so that they know it's done right. So even if you get a deal, that doesn't mean that it's not going to cost anything after that. It means, you gotta, after your deliverables and after you finalize the delivery to them, you're good. Before that, you still got some stuff you got to pay for to deliver it to them and finalize a distribution deal. So all these things you got to keep in mind for budget right before you begin. Festivals, distribution, marketing, the actual post-production, production, pre-production, and development if you're paying somebody to help you write the script and stuff like that. So just keep all that in mind, everybody. There are no studies next week, so hope you guys all have a great 4th of July week and a great 4th of July in general. The next meeting will be on the 11th, and I believe we are watching a film for its production design. This time we are focusing primarily on props. That will be July 11th. So we will see you all then. Hope you guys all have a great week.
Oh, wait, before you go, can I share my project?
Oh, you finished it? Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, sweet. Can you give me permission?
I think you can start sharing. Are you sharing? Are you trying?
Yeah, it's just taking a second.
Okay.
You guys see it?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, kind of like a yeah.
Like an Arabian type feel.
Yeah, kind of. It's kind of like this would be for a movie that is really just, it's like, it shows like modern old times, more of like kind of a bit of like a documentary style mixed with like more of a story. It's kind of what it's going for, but so it's like it's got real feels of like the actual, historical elements mixed in with like a bit of like a romantic or fun story. It's kind of the idea for the mood board for this film.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you can kind of get like the tone, so the bit of mixture of modern and yeah, and it's, yeah, that was kind of my thinking on that. It was just like something that's going to be like hot, showcase like kind of like shots where you would have like maybe like walking into the desert, like, and you show shadows and like a lot of nuances, and actually thinking about subtle things, and then actual like real references to like real events that have kind of happened. And then it's like there's also, it's not just Arabian, there's also like Russian and like maybe some other elements there as well. So it's just like how people come from like another place to a different culture. So there's a bit of that in there, kind of my idea. And the whole premise is to showcase like the humanity and how things have changed over the time in the last 100 years. Was my kind of thinking for this mood board. So you'll see, the modern buildings as well.
Yeah, I like it. It looks very like a lot of the styles are very modern. And I like the sunset in the background for the overall image. Kind of shows what you're talking about with like the walking through the desert and like the romantic kind of feel to it, as well as the bottom picture in the middle right there. It looks really nice. And then like you can see like the architecture being a little like modern, but it's also in the same kind of area than the interior. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So it's like that, and yeah. So, and I don't know if you know, like, but the culture is very, very different between these two places. So it's kind of a bit of a culture clash as well. It's kind of the whole idea, which is, not like a clash, maybe more of a mix, if anything, to showcase like more on the documentary humanity style side of things. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Is there any other kind of notes that you needed to go over with the mood board, or would it just match to the script, or?
No, I mean,
I would say like maybe lean into, I can see some of the aspects that you're going for, but if you're going for documentary, maybe have some grittier images, since a lot of these images do look very like photo shoot, very
it wasn't
luxury.
like, it's more like not that type of documentary, like documentary style movies where they're like, it's not really a documentary, it's more of a, what do you call it? It's more modern, like a real movie, but it's got some documentary elements to it, as in like real facts kind of mixed in.
A docudrama, like Vish said?
Yeah, a little bit more like that. Yeah, docudrama where it's like, yeah, exactly. So it's more visually, and the storyline's a bit more appealing than just a straight.
And what are the two snakes supposed to? Are they like the?
Kind of just like those the natural habitat, like animals, kind of, and then visualization of the what's it called? Like it's would be part of the actual like plot is maybe he's a snake charmer. So.
Oh, okay.
Oh. Yeah. And then yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like that, and then yeah, which would be referenced to the natural habitat of the animals as well there too. So you have like that kind of mixed in, but not really like talked about. So there would also be geckos, and there would also be birds, and there would also be, I just use the snakes because that's natural habitat. There's lots of snakes in the desert, desert snakes, and then so it'd be like there, but it's not really like reference like this is like how you have in like what's called Animal Planet, where it's like very much like documentary style, like explained, but it's really pretty. This is more like there's a story, and it's just kind of like has the kind of elements in there as well, and then in the dialogue they would actually be explaining the history instead of it just being like documentary style. If that makes any sense, like tie it in together, showcasing it, kind of the thought on that one. So it's like more underneath than it is just explained. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like the underlying theme.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of what I perceived in this was more of a traditional and non-traditional kind of theme.
Yeah, so it's like a mix.
Because you had some women kind of wearing the veil, and and the men also kind of have that head, I forgot the name, what they call that, the headband, head scarf, and there are some who are more
the hijab, I think it's called.
Hijab, right? The hijab is the men, they call it something different.
Yeah, I think there are multiple different.
Yeah, there's a few different names for
it. Yeah.
Yeah, this is more, there's
Where's
a book.
Arden when you need her?
Yeah. And so, from that perspective, I thought it was more like a traditional, but like you said, it could be different
It's mixed
places.
in,
different-
so
Yeah, because Arden does say a lot that you do run into those huge clashes of people that will wear their hijabs and their headscarves more traditionally, like that maybe that mother is, and then some that will style it a little more, like with that little shade of red and that woman in the top right. And people that will put their own flair to it, and you can definitely see the mix between the younger, more modern, and the older crowd.
yeah, it's kind of like, so it's not gonna be like pointed out like it's all everybody's wearing it. Like I said, it's like more of a mix, because in modern day you have people that will wear and then people will not. So it's kind of like showcasing that a bit more. And then the whole idea is like more of just my underlying, like the theme is to just have it be present without it being like completely talked about or like pointed to. So oftentimes you'll see in movies where they make it the entire theme, where this, my idea is like for this is to have it just be like, that's just what it is. Some people wear, some people don't. Yeah, everything's kind of like just naturalized.
Yeah, like what Arden said was, I remember Arden talked about it, and she said that they will wear it, but a lot of them will like wear it like only half of their head or something, depending on the region that they are, because the police will be more lenient and or they'll not, and you need to be more careful with and that kind of thing. So
exactly. So it's like,
So one thing which I wanted to mention was that, when I first look at this, the pictures, I mean, your pictures are really beautiful. And there are a couple of things which kind of draws my attention to. And I don't know if others also felt this way. But for me, the whale was definitely something which drew my attention for both men and women. And they wear the headwear, right? Whatever they're wearing. So that was something which drew me in very specifically to each individual characters. And then the other one, as Priscilla was mentioning, was the snakes, right? The two snakes, two different colors, which kind of drew me in. And, my mind kind of goes in different directions to kind of relate them together. To me, it appeared as if.
Yeah, I thought it was like a symbolism of the contrast or something like that.
Contrast, and maybe there's something thematically going on here. It could maybe nothing to do with that. It's just a geographical locations, different locations that you're trying to project. But for me, the perception was that thematically there is something going on with the snakes and the people who are there. Maybe something like a clash or contrast, as Priscilla mentioned. That's my take.
There's a bit of like, with snakes, it's like this, there's a bit of symbolism in snakes, of course. And then there's also like you'll see like some of like the more modern fancy kind of like buildings, and then more of like the old decor. So it's almost like, it's obviously this is actually going to be shot more like modern, but they still have some old, like in the story.
You also mentioned Russians, so I feel like if you're so like, if you're trying to show the main points, just like the main points you're gonna, so I don't see any Russians here, although I could be wrong. It could be that dude over there with the tattoos.
The Russian man is, it's like he's not like, it's the location of the story is obviously in the desert, but we have visitors, who are from another country. Exactly.
So as long as you have, sorry, I didn't mean to. So as long as you have those main themes and those main images to make the person have an idea of the feel and the tone and the look that you're going for, I feel like that's the main
Yeah,
thing
so
to
this
keep.
one Russian man comes into the story. So he's from obviously from Russia. So the story is about all of these people, and then he's coming from another country.
Yeah.
So
but that's pretty much all I'd say is like, don't worry too much about telling the entire story through it, just the main aspects of the look, feel that you're going for, and so that you can help someone have the idea of what you want it to look like, what you want it to feel, what emotion you're getting across. Like the romantic, I think you did a really good job at showing like the romantic look, the family look, like the different looking people. And that's what you want to convey, because your script is going to tell your story. This is to give a visual so that the person can help imagine it, see what you see, basically.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And again, like very pretty visually, especially with the woman and things. So
visually, I think it's very appealing, and you connected really well the background desert, and then your characters are kind of related to the desert, which I thought people kind of really make that connection. So that was very well thought of and very well done, I think.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. Does anyone else have any questions or comments for Sarah about her mood board?
Very nice. I like it. It's very nice. The way it looks, the color and everything, with the beach and the sunset. I like the tone of everything. The tone of everything. That's really good.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. No, I mean, it looks like it's like I did put some thought into it, but yeah.
Yeah, it looks great.
Yeah. And for me, it's like, that's why I was like finishing touches, because again, I already have like a vision in my head what I kind of want it to look like, or my ideas for the moods. Then I just go boom.
And this is a story you're working on?
I haven't written it, but I mean, I could write it for this. This is what I did specifically for the exercise, but I came up with a story in my head. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, cool.
I could have matched it to something that I've already written for the project. I'm not sure if you wanted to that specifically, or if you just.
No, it could have been anything. It didn't matter, as long as it just conveys an idea.
Yeah, so it's like it's showing that I could easily match this to a script. I could even do that again. So
yeah,
it's easy enough to do. I guess it's like once you know how to do pieces, it's easy enough to. This one isn't specific. Well, it's kind of written, but kind of I don't know how to explain that. Yeah. It's tied in with some. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah. But sorry.
Hey, good. All right. Did you have the other exercise, or is that?
That one I'll be on Monday. So I got the one, and then I'll have the other one Monday.
Okay.
Just remembering, Monday we will not have a meeting. So the next meeting.
Yeah, like the next meeting we can look at right there.
Happy 4th of July, everyone! For Canada, happy Monday.
Yeah, right.
Wait, when's their Boxing Day? Isn't that?
No, their Boxing Day is in November, I'm pretty sure. No, October? Wait. Sarah. No, Boxing Day, honey, Boxing Day.
Oh, wait, Boxing Day is Christmas.
Boxing Day is after Christmas. Gosh, Boxing Day is after Christmas. Oh, my New Zealand friends would hate me right now.
Oh, yeah.
Boxing Day is after Christmas, the 26th.
The Canadian equivalent to Independence Day.
So why are we taking the whole week off?
When's Canadian Independence Day?
Yeah, well, I'm curious.
Because we always take a week off in the semesters. We just align it with the holidays.
We try to align it with the holidays so that people can have, like, if they want to do a trip or something, enjoy their family, they can do that. So we always have a week off in between semesters or in the middle of the semesters. And so we try to align it with the holiday. And since it's 4th of July,
every semester we have a week off at some point, and then also we have like 2 or 3 weeks in between semesters. So
yeah, so we aligned it with 4th of July in case people wanted to take trips and stuff.
But all right, guys, I hope you all have a good night.
All right.
Have a good week, and I'll see you all the week after next.
Okay.
Good night, everyone. Oh, sorry, Sarah. Wait, Sarah wants to say something?
Okay, so we don't have any next week, and then it'll be the 11th, 14th, and then we'll be going like till the end of August for this semester. That's correct?
middle of August. I think it ends the. I think it's the 11th. It's the 11th that we end.
Oh, that's
So
really
yeah, every Monday and Thursday, not next week, but every other Monday and Thursday until August 11th for this semester.
But
So
yeah,
cool.
I hope you guys had fun. This was a really fun exercise for me, both of them. You know, got to stretch creative muscles a little bit, got to play around with color and images and photography, which I love. So it was really fun. So I hope you guys had fun too.
Oh yeah.
I hope it was a good experience for everybody to kind of like learn what goes into it and how they can like do that with anything, like even whether it's a script or just an idea to kind of further it along. It kind of makes it feel more real, or at least to me anyway. So I think it makes it feel like you're more productive with it.
Totally. Yeah.
All right, everyone. Good night.
See you guys next
All right,
the week
everybody.
after next.
All
Have a
right,
good
see you
holiday.
then. All right.
Bye.
Take care.